People come as they are. Look at me, just music references out the wazoo.
As they were and as they always will be. It's very dragon green, isn't it?
Lords and ladies, good wives and good men, I welcome you to Vassals of Kingsgrave podcast with another episode of Blackfyre Backchat, continuing with our House of the Dragon Season 2 coverage. This week we're talking about Season 2, Episode 8, which is the finale, titled The Queen Who Ever Was, which is clunky. I am joined today with my Grand Maester Bina.
Hello everyone, it's sad Bina today.
And I am joined with my Master-in-law's Steph.
Hello, gsdg on the Discord or the forums.
I'm also joined by my Master of Ships, Noah.
Hey guys, and Pops, sailing on a sea of rage into this.
As well as my Mistress of Whisperers, Elle.
Hey there, Elle on the Discord, and my little birds tell me that I should lighten up a little bit, and I've somewhat softened on my stance on the finale.
And last but not least, my Master of Coin, David.
Hey guys, this is David HHH on the Discord.
And I am the Lord Baron, your host for the evening. So, as this being finale, I do have one last news to bring forth behind the council, or before the council, rather. Me and Drowned Snow, aka Adam, aka the spokesman for Dragon's Cast, we met. We had an agreeable chat. It was very good. It seems for the time being, we will take our residency in Summerhall. And in the meantime, until the next season, we're going to steal Blackfyre back.
Uh-oh.
Well, it's not like Aegon's using it.
Right.
Exactly. But going on to the episode proper, for today's episode, I'm really upset because I wanted to try and be positive. So, because I'm not, I'm giving this a dour 3.5 lemon cake. The culmination of the season really, to me, just felt all the mistakes we all felt watching the season unfold. It really compounds right here in this episode. But what do you guys think?
I'll go. I'll give it a 3. I mean, this is a solid setup for episodes 9 and 10, right?
Right.
Just kidding. I give it a 1.5. It was a better watch than Oppenheimer, I'll say that.
Ooh, fighting words.
Uh-oh.
We all know the worst Nolan film is Interstellar. I'm giving this a 2. It's my lowest ranked episode of the season by far. I think if it were its own episode, like mid-season, it might get to a 2.5, but the standards are higher for a season finale. And I'm sad.
And they set that bar so high with Brooke's Rest mid-season.
Right.
Well, I think partly because I think we set the bar high ourselves because the rest of the season was so slow. We were kind of pinning all our hopes on a sort of Hail Mary pass at the end there, and it just never came through. So yeah, maybe it's on us. But people who were criticizing Elle and hoping for more levity from this episode of this cast have come to the wrong place.
Okay, I'll be the
like
voice of levity. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead, David.
I was gonna say I'll be the voice of levity here, but that said, I think that anyone who wants to share nerd rage, that's what we're here for, right? But personally, I'm gonna be the odd man out here. I kind of liked it. I mean, I won't say it was like a masterpiece or anything, but it gave me what I kind of wanted. I would kind of resign myself to that all the battles were going to happen next year and that they weren't going to spend the money on another one this year, so I was okay with it. I'm going to give it a 4. I mean, it certainly wasn't brilliant, but I liked a lot of what they did. I liked a lot of what was going on in Essos. I thought the epic, the stuff at the end, all the different, the montage was really good and really well done. And yeah, I mean, I wish more had happened, but I'm hoping that means next year is going to be awesome. Or next season, whenever the heck we get it.
Well, to answer that levity with pour some oil on those wings and set fire to them. No, this was horrendous. This was just a terrible episode, and it really, a lot of the good work that was done this season was really undermined, and I really tried to sleep on it. I watched it kind of late, so I kind of had a lot of friends telling me, sort of rubbing their hands eagerly, thinking you were gonna just hate this and be so angry. And I was pretty calm. It was okay, but in the cold light of day, a lot of what they've done, and we'll get into it, it was just terrible. So yeah, that's I think I'm gonna join Steph on the 1.5 lemon cakes.
I'm still with the majority here, with a little bit of a small dissent, because I did ultimately kind of, after I went to bed angry, kind of softened up a little bit. But I gave it a 2.75. Initially, I did have it at a 1 out of 5, but I slept on it and thought about a couple of things. And again, I can change him. So I'm waiting for next season for him to kind of turn around and show me what a good man he really is. So I raised it to a 2.75. Ultimately, I think the integrity overall just really, really suffered. And I think we saw the fallout of that on Sunday night.
And Jock, it seems you've joined us. What would you give this episode rating?
I'd probably give it maybe like a 2.5 or a 3. I don't really have any issue with any lack of battles. Like, I don't really think it's always necessarily. But I feel like you still need to sort of like bring to resolution some of like the story.
I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, and I only gave it a dour 3.5 because, again, feeling the host, I don't want to be the one leading, but bring it all down with a low vote. But it's been really hard these last couple episodes. I think last week when I said being burnt out, I felt very burnt out watching this episode. But in the episode, now that we speak on it, we open in the Free Cities where Sir Tywin is meeting with the Triarchy in hopes of gaining a fleet. As he sweats sitting barefoot on the carpet, he's told he will not have a fleet unless the commander likes him. Turns out Captain Lohar doesn't at first, but smirks when the Westerosi lord asks him to best him at what?
I'm going ahead with a very aggressive unmute here. What the fuck was the point of this entire strand of plot? We have 8 episodes this season. Why do we have him trying to charm this woman? Why are they mud wrestling? Just why? Why any of it? And it really pisses me off when the showrunner Ryan Condal was like, we didn't have time and resource to get to a big battle or something significant. When they wasted money scenes character on this bollocks. I don't know. You guys remember the books? I kind of read them back in the mist time. Was this in the books? Do we care? Does it have a meaning? Does it have a point? Does it pay off later?
Absolutely not.
In the book, Otto just sent a raven to the Triarchy. The whole deal with the Triarchy in the book is that, they're just this, or at least what the Maester makes of it is, this is like some sort of merchant-led republic, right? So they're, so the Maesters put a lot of emphasis upon how they're, all dithering and, like different horses pulling in different directions, right? So they're so far away that it took so long to bear the fruit of the fleet of taking off, because Otto sent those ravens pretty much right after the Green Council, right? And then I remember Alan Velaryon goes to Lys after the war when he had the intelligence from staying in Dorne about young Viserys. So he does a whole visit there, but I don't remember any mud wrestling. It could be my shocking lack of knowledge, though. But the main thing was that Alan was a bad haggler, and so they, of course, demanded a prince's ransom for young Viserys, right? So
Yeah, so this Lohar character is a rehash of a later character, the Ricalio Rindoon, I think he's called. Pretty cool character, pretty out there. Comes in later in the books, and they've brought. I'm going to go with them into this sphere, but not necessarily an issue with that. I no, really. I mean, I agree, Bina. Like we did, it felt like we wasted a lot of time here. But I think kind of the whole portrayal of the Free Cities, like they kind of just portrayed them as these beggars in huts, and the Free Cities are these incredibly beautiful, elaborate. Just there's so much more to them than this, and they're just presented as these useless pirate curs.
Completely agree, Noah.
And at the end, I don't watch previews of the next episode. I don't watch the making of. I was very angry and had a glass of rum to finish, so I did this time. But what's his name? Condor. What did he described it as? They get sent to the pirate land to treat with the pirates. Which really boiled my blood for some reason. I think that's up there with he forgot about the Iron Fleet. It's in that category anyway. One thing I noticed, which I wanted to just bring up and ask you guys, why was Tyler not wearing any shoes?
Custom? I don't know. Maybe just to show that they're different than Westeros.
Yeah, maybe a culture thing.
He talks about that in the whatchamacallit, not the on the House the Dragon
House the
built.
Dragon.
Yeah, he talks about it was like to make him as uncomfortable as possible, to keep him off his guard by having, like, he has to go under their customs, like sit on the floor, take his shoes off and all that. That was the idea behind it, at least. So
But that's what diplomacy is about.
Some houses have a no-shoe policy. Like,
right.
not every house is a punk house. You just stomp around in boots,
I mean, for just walking into this episode, there's so many things. This is why I gave it such a low score. There's so many things that kind of the old butterfly effect that we're all aware of and have experienced the pain of in Game of Thrones. They had the chance to kind of, with Daemon and Corlys in season 1, bring in some more of the Free Cities, have a rivalry, have some sort of something, and then bring that in here. They didn't do that, and they've just kind of thrown in these half-assed characters, and as we know, spoilers or books are going to get burnt to a crisp pretty early on in the next season. So, big waste of time.
You could argue that in the source material that pretty much all the cultures in Essos are, portrayed with a greater cartoonish quality, even in Daenerys's chapters. So not just by the maesters. There was we had a whole episode of, was it on the Mothership podcast or on VOC about Orientalism and A Song of Ice and Fire, right?
Right.
So this definitely felt like it was playing to that. It's just a question of, it's one thing to read it on the page and another thing to see it on the screen.
Sure.
I think it speaks to the weakness of the writing, because you could have had Thailand be the kind of, the bigoted Westerosi guy who kind of moans about, oh, I'm just being sent to treat with pirates, which kind of brings up that kind of bigotry that or Orientalism that there is in the books. But when you get there, for it to be way more civilized, or to have its own civilization that's as valid and beautiful and wonderfully rendered, given the budget that HBO gives this show, would have been quite fascinating. I mean, like, if you were a more sophisticated writer who's interested in unpicking the meta narrative in these stories, that they are hearsay and that they're fraught with perspective, and then trying to pick out the truth. I mean, the amount of time they spent in this little subplot, they could have done something far more interesting. You've got the right to spend as much time derping around as you want, but then do something more interesting with it. Don't just kind of mud wrestle with a girl. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, and then also, like, maybe it didn't even have to be Tywin Lannister learns a lesson about racism today. It could have been just more like, it could have just gone into a mindset of just like, I can't fuck this up. Aemond is going to have my head if I return empty-handed. Should I just defect and leave? And then,
Right. They give us 3 scenes of what they essentially did in the first scene. It's unnecessary.
Right. And they didn't even really, or, they only lightly touched on the fact that, these are Daemon and Corlys's old enemies come back to haunt them for their previous adventurism in the Stepstones.
Yeah, a lot of wasted time in this this second season.
Personally, I thought it was fun. I mean, I understand the points, and I wouldn't really argue them, but I had fun with it, and I guess that's what I want my TV to do, is give me some fun.
Yeah, there was actually a missed opportunity to show the Black Swan of Lys, Joanna Swan. They mentioned her during the episode of The Hunt when Ellis and Rhaenyra were young. So by now she's probably, well on her way to being the ruler of Lys in all but name, if she's not already there yet. So
they had so many opportunities. I mean, there could have been something about, they've talked about Hugh and Ulf's parents. There could have been I think it's Hugh, who's the daughter of one of Jaehaerys' daughters. Yeah, Sarah, that's it, thank you. They had a chance to kind of touch upon that, to maybe show a few other bastards, I don't know, or just have a bit of fun with that and, kind of tie a few things together on the Dragonseed side. I think.
Yeah. And, they could have even invented, like Joanna Swan saying, hey, Queen Alicent actually, made an honest effort to get me back. It didn't work out, and I've made my new life here. But I remembered that kindness, so I'll put in a good word for you with the captains,
Icing on the turd for me was not comparing, but mistaking him. The first mistaken name was Tywin, and I just started twitching that they would dare besmirch Charles Dance's masterpiece with this, like, poor man's version of Peter Pettigrew in Lannister robes.
Yeah, but he's tall.
And virile.
I mean, if they're trying to do a Ricalia in Dune, like, he is a badass in the books, and he chooses the strongest people to come and mate with his wives. Make of that what you will, but that's why Alan Oakenfist and just meant a lot more. But we had fun, right?
This tiling just does not feel like tiling to me, at least from the source material. And that could just be my fault from expecting, the exact same thing that we get from the books. And hey, it's an adaptation and all. But I just felt like none of that even mattered with this character that they put out for. Not to mention all the time that they wasted and how they made Essos look. I just very, very just cringy to me, just putting all of that together. And that's what we ended up with. So I really did not enjoy the Essos at all.
No, and it's a shame. Like, honestly, the best with the SLC scenes is every now and then some dude would have a painted beard, and that's about as much world building as we got there.
I did appreciate the Bluebeards.
Yep.
I did too, yeah. That's again how much I was struggling with this episode. I'm like, oh, he's got a blue beard. All right, that's cool.
Even if Show Dario didn't.
But back in Westeros, Aemond overlooks Sharp Point, a town he had just decimated. In the Red Keep, Aegon commands Master Orwyle as a oh my goodness. Let me try that one more time. I can word. In the Red Keep, Aegon commends Master Orwyle as a good man, but then is visited by Larys. The Clubfoot asks the king to leave the capital to seek refuge with the Iron Bank of Bravos. Aegon pushes against this notion and laments how far he's fallen and what happens when you leave a sausage on a grill too long. Larys speaks on the plight of small folk, encouraging Aegon to be the light for him, calling himself the realm's delight.
Is it just me, or has the Realm's Delight been criminally underused this entire show?
Well, and that's why I had to put it in the notes, because I was like, but this means nothing in context of the show, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Crispy said it once at the tourney when asking for her favor. And, that was nice, but, I wanted to hear a song calling about the Realm's Delight, but, at like the Hunt or something, maybe. Instead of just that song about Nymeria's 10,000 ships. Like, they could have even shouted that out during the riot amongst the Long Live the Queen.
I mean, fair play to Aegon for reaching for the rum, because my God, I needed it after 5 minutes of this.
Also, look at what they did to my boy. They massacred my boy.
My main question is, did we really need to know that his cock burnt off and exploded like a sausage?
No, it exploded. It didn't come off. It exploded.
Right? Yeah.
It's so on brand for Aegon, no, for him to say something like that. That's like super on brand for him to use those exact words.
He's
Right.
like, my cock blew off and I'm a cripple. But my cock, man.
Right?
Well, I mean, even Larys has that. So it's sad that's, it's on the one hand, it is rather poetic, but on the other hand, it's not actually going to stop him from
Burninating.
or, just like, like when he returns to court after Rhaenyra's downfall, he's still like hosting orgies or, like commanding his Kingsguard to go seduce women with him behind a screen so he can look. And it's just like, how many of those ladies are actually like fully consenting to that? So
He still feels carnal urges, is how the maester put it.
The old ghost hand. Is it Jamie? Still feels his right hand.
Oh, my boy Jamie. I have a heart locket with his face in it.
There was also, I think there were a couple things here, so maybe I'm misremembering, but in the books, does he try and take another wife later?
yes,
He's Cassandra Baratheon.
Yes, the one Aemond was
Yeah.
betrothed to. So they just do a Catelyn Stark and just switch that up once Helena's out and Aemond are both out of the picture.
And really in the book, he was so actually all his focus was on remarrying and having another child.
Yep.
Marrying Cassandra Baratheon. That was pretty much his whole focus before he was assassinated. So that's pretty much where he was toward the end.
Mm-hmm.
Producing there. And so my point being is that this, and then the Sunfire comment. I mean, obviously, Sunfire could have a part to play, but it felt very much like this is now where they're trying to bring it down into 4 seasons and cut some of these loose ends off. I don't know. And those plot may not come into play.
No, I think he just thinks Sunfire is dead.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, they're gonna go back, and he's gonna be gone. He's not gonna be there in the field.
Or you'll see Sunfire on like the far end of the Dragon Mont, and then he'll be like, "Oh, we gotta go to Dragonstone, not Bravos. Turn this ship around."
All right, and then moving along in the Vale, we see Nettles, tired, dirty, and drinking from his chain, still searching for the Vale Dragon.
Reyna is very lucky that those hill tribes didn't see her when she was spending however long out there.
Do they even exist in this show?
They did in Game of Thrones, but I don't know. Certainly the burned men on it, or the source material, because we know where they came from.
Nettles.
Yeah, but surely there are stone crows.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we just get it all out of the way right now. Because they only had a few scenes with her searching for the dragon, and all the scenes were just her dirty, tired, cold, hungry. I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about it. It's the most we even get out of it is they're sort of face to face at the end of the episode, and that's about it. I don't have anything to say. I think I said my piece with it earlier, and they confirmed all of our fears. It's unfortunate.
Nettles, I like how you describe Sheep Stealer as a dumpster cat on the forum.
I've been there as a cat lady, minding my own business and rescuing a poor, bedraggled kitty. I've been there, Raina. I've been there. But
In this case, I think it's the other way
everyone knows
around.
how I feel about that. That's true. That's true. I haven't changed my position on the Raina storyline and just Nettles not being there. So I don't really have much to say either.
This was their chance to, like, I don't even know if it's worth commenting on. I feel like we can just kind of say, oh, it's another Raina shitting herself and drinking water from a stream or whatever the hell's happening. They had such a chance. If they are going to go down this route with Nettles, obviously I totally disagree. But if they are, do something. Give us something.
I mean, at least at the end of the episode, have her ride a fucking dragon. I mean, they pissed us off so much, but at the end of the day, we're superficial fuckers. Like, I would have had part of my ethical objections overturned if I'd have seen a badass image of her flying a dragon. I mean, the whole thing was just a giant cock tease. Sorry, I'll mute now. Apologies.
No, couldn't have said it better, to be honest. Do we want to comment on that anymore or move on? Because it almost does, at least for Blackfyre Backchat, feels like us beating a dead horse.
At least maybe have her like maybe some type of inverse with Aemon and Vhagar. Maybe something like that. They could kind of maybe give her a story like that, like a foil in the kind of a way. A minor foil, but obviously we know who his, nemesis is. But something, something. I'm so thirsty.
They don't need to change what's in the source material.
No, of course not.
Giving an animal food, of course it should be with the correct person. Because Nettles is the only one to tame a dragon the way she tames it, and this is the only wild dragon to be claimed by a person.
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to address that.
It just felt like to me they really didn't want to bother with it. It was kind of an afterthought and threw it. Oh, you know what? Well, we'll put it in the veil, for the book readers. Oh, Dale, you get it? They just it felt like just crap almost. It just really, really did not. If you're gonna do that again, do something. And it felt just very thrown away.
Agreed.
Totally.
All right, and then moving on to Dragonstone, we get the Petulant Prince and the two maybe betrayers. Jace puts Ulf down as he's acting uncouth for someone who has been gifted an ancient tradition. Hugh attempts to be smart, but is clearly over his head when it comes to the court life.
I did like this scene.
I liked it.
Yeah, they've been doing a good job with the dragon seeds.
Ulf's actor clearly or is really like threading the needle on the smarminess because he's acting, like, or
Like a
it's the right
geezer.
amount of right. But he's just he's clearly, he knows that they need him more than he needs them, but you still have to like keep up the pretense of these class differences. And
Courtly etiquette doesn't mean shit to Ulf. Like
well, that too,
nothing
and
to him.
oh yeah, no, and like the reason that they didn't cut him is because it does work that there's among the 3 dragon seeds on Dragonstone right now, they're showing the full range of, Ulf is just clearly just like of low character who should have never made it past the vetting stage if there was a vetting stage.
I'll take anyone.
Right. Hugh is, like, as we see later at the scene with Rhaenyra, he's, like, not very psyched about burning people to death. And Adam is, just like all in. So but yeah, and like just it is just about like the low cunning of Ulf, and in his introductory scene he was, stealing an apple out of, like the near empty barrel of, a merchant in Flea Bottom. It doesn't, not because he needed it, but because he was bored, right? So, and was walking by. So,
He doesn't deserve the wing.
and but that's the point. It's perfect because later in Templeton, after he's betrayed Rhaenyra, he rapes 3 different women every night and feeds the ones that don't please him to Silverwing.
Kind of had a pretty embarrassing death, didn't he? Or was that Hugh that slipped on guts? I can't recall, but yeah.
It was Hugh, because
Was that Hugh?
that was the one that Hugh died in the battle because Ulf got poisoned.
Oh, yeah, with the wine. Okay, with the wine.
Yeah. So the
okay, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah, and then Ulf is the one to introduce the idea to Hugh that lords instead of mere knights. So.
And that's going to be interesting.
I like his line here when Rhaenyra's like, "A knight doesn't act this way," and he's like, "Then maybe you should make me a knight."
Yeah, no, right, and also, to give, like it is to me like Team Black's version of Aemond to Larys at the Small Council. It's like this is the clearly untrustworthy person in your midst, but then like you tell them exactly what you think of them and humiliate them like that, and then it's going to backfire.
That's a good comparison, actually. It's that phrase, isn't it? History plays as tragedy then as farce. And I feel in Oakland it's tragedy, and in Ulf it's farce. But I have to say, I did find this whole scene really entertaining. It was it's one of the few very entertaining, and I think well judged on the class differences and Jace bristling and a lot going on. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, and it's not like Jace came in there just to punch down. He, like they were supposed to be at the training yard, and Hugh is actually telling Ulf that before Jace walks in.
And we are joined by the Lord's Hand, Hannah. Hannah, what's going on? what episode rating would you give this?
Oh, fuck. Like a 2. I think that's being generous. Only as a season finale. If it was like the penultimate episode of the season, I think it would have been fine. Ish, for the most part. As a season finale though, was very what the hell? If I didn't know the story, I would not continue to watch after this one.
We do have the bowl of brown. Just in case.
Yeah. It's just one big ass bowl of brown, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that was a choice. I feel like, I'm not sure if they thought that was more like woohoo or tension building than it was. It did not seem to be. They should have left it on the dragon seeds in the dragon pit or something. I just and don't get me wrong, I hate a cliffhanger as much as the next person, but there didn't seem to be any, I don't know, any energy to it that would have brought me back, and especially after waiting almost 2 years to see the next season. I'm not sure that was a strong choice, and
Potential
I
was
don't know why they
wasted if
would have
you have to
burned
wait 2
it.
years for it.
Yeah, you know what would have been a cool cliffhanger? Rhaena flying up on Sheep Stealer for the first time to see the
Right,
Triarchy fleet approaching.
something. Yeah,
That spells trouble, but then you have to ask questions about geography and why are they like so many leagues north of Kagas.
yeah. I'm like, is there a post-credit scene I missed? Like, they don't do that. It was bizarre. And I understand that this is not Game of Thrones, don't get me wrong, but you're dragging out one book for however many seasons, and you just, there's no excitement in your last episode. I don't understand. It just seemed to be very out of sync with the rest of the season. Very, very odd choices this year with editing and where, when parts of the story are told. This is the most odd of all of them. It was upsetting and disappointing. The most action is a mud wrestling scene. Are you serious?
Yeah, there's already talk from, the audience, casual viewers out there, like, 2 seasons of nothing happening. I cannot stick around after 2 years to see. I've already forgotten the show, and what a big complete waste of time. So yeah, a lot of, I'm not gonna stick around. A lot of that,
It's sad.
on social media
Yeah,
and
it's sad
online.
because there's a lot of people working really hard on it. So I don't understand why, of all the exciting moments in the Dance of the Dragons, you chose to leave it on that. I don't get it.
And I think there's, great space between, dragon action, more action, Michael Bay explosions, and a good, tight, cohesive, intriguing storyline. And they just did not do it. Simply, they didn't do it.
Right. Yeah, even if they just did political intrigue, they didn't do enough of it to make it exciting. I'm sorry.
They didn't do either.
There was no
though.
time.
They did no intrigue, no action.
Yeah.
The part that's weird for me is that there's so many big moments that are going to happen next season that'll make it seem so unbalanced, because I get wanting to not do them all in one season. We had Rook's Rest, but next season is going to probably be the most expensive season of television ever if they do it like they should, because there's going to be so many. All the big battles are going to pretty much have to happen next year, unless they spread it over 2 seasons and then have finale.
Because they're not going to have the ship.
We'll see.
Very frustrating.
They're still getting. The season finale actually had higher ratings than the premiere, and it's been going up all season. So we'll see if they actually do lose.
That should have been a mid-season finale.
Mm-hmm.
If we were getting another season guaranteed in 6 months, it wouldn't be so bad. But to know how long you have to wait for these things, it's like, why did you? I don't know. Why is this the hill we died on? I don't know. I'm not loving it. Maybe I just don't get it.
I personally would have been okay with, like, give them like 3 months after the writers get back to, tighten up the script and do reshoots, or call some of the actors back for reshoots if they have to rework some things.
Yeah,
So
I was watching it and I like clicked on it so I could see the timeline because nothing had happened. And it said like 53 out of an hour and 9. And I was like, oh yeah, but there's an hour and 9 left. Like this has to be a 2-hour finale. And it took my brain a minute to wrap itself around the fact that no, that's the whole thing. And I was like gaslighting myself and I was like, did I miss an episode? And this is actually the second to last episode. It was really distracting how just flat it was. I don't like it.
That's this tremendous sense
Don't get me
of
started on nettles.
unfulfillment.
Yeah.
weren't they saying that this episode was going to be an hour 20 minutes?
Yeah, it's not even the longest episode of the season.
I thought that when I started, yeah, but then there was the inside the episode thing, whatever,
Yeah.
at the end.
But they've been doing that all season.
I'm actually thankful it's shorter, to be honest.
It felt like the longest episode. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Did they really need like a 5-minute previously on? It's just like previously on Damon trips balls.
Well, at least we didn't get the incest again.
Yeah.
You never
We didn't
know
need
with-
that in the previously on.
Well, now that Raina equals Nettles.
All right. Well, moving back to the episode proper, Rhaenyra and Corlys discuss the 3 new riders and their merit. The Sea Snake encourages Rhaenyra that they must strike now, although Rhaenyra does not believe Helena would ride Dreamfire against them. After agreeing that Aemond is a little shit, Corlys says he has renamed his ship to the Queen Who Never Was. Just like, read the room, dude.
Okay, so I mean, Rhaenys had kind of tried to move past that title in the, like, decade before this is all gone down. So couldn't he call the ship Princess Rhaenys?
Yeah, I thought
Honestly.
this was such a cack-handed attempt and a misuse of a fantastic actor. Yet again, we get barely any Corlys, and like you could have just seen him walking around. I mean, going about his hand duties, and then breaking down in his private quarters, or Baylor comforting him, or something, which would have been way more powerful than just this kind of throwaway line.
Everything I do now, I do for her.
Also, isn't it bad luck to rename a ship?
No, you're the master of ships.
I'm gonna go with yes. The rest, as based on the rest of this episode, yes, it was bad luck.
I mean, I think the idea behind it was that he had named the ship after himself because that's how he always thought of his life, and everything revolved around him. And this is his symbolic way of saying, okay, maybe I should have spent a little more time with my family and my, and my wife before she died, but also my family after the dressing down he got last week. I think that's what they were going for, at least.
I don't know. The Queen Rhaenys sounds like a much better ship name, to be honest. Just get a new flagship.
Yeah, you can always christen a new ship, and then there's no bad luck involved.
I did think Was he? I think it was this scene. Was he seriously suggesting Daeron's Tessarion could stand against 7 dragons? Kind of like advising caution.
Well, I think more of his point is Tessarion is the lone dragon in the entire Reach, and now she's being ridden. And sooner or later, they're going to be marching up the Mander, as we know they do. So I think it's just more of the fact that, like, do you really want to wait for Tessarion to reinforce King's Landing?
Like Tessarion's like what of a size of with Jace's dragon, right? Something like that. They were both hatchlings around the same time.
Yes.
That's like a light snack for Silverwing or Vermithor.
Yeah, but also, like, you don't, if Rhaenyra's finally having second thoughts about the character of the Dragon Seeds, right? So, use them now before they get ideas, right?
Yeah, hopefully you lose a couple.
Well, actually, I'd like a promotion because of my leal service at this battle, so I can't go out to this next battle till then. Sorry.
It just made me think, did he even kneel for Rhaenyra?
Good point. We didn't see that.
I'm gonna guess not.
Yeah, but like the entire point is that they don't really have anything to lose from the feudal structure, right? They don't have.
They started at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have the word of, or like they don't have their house's reputation to lose. They don't have, like family members to take hostage, right? Unless they're going that route for Hugh's wife.
Which may or may not work, but she's most likely going to be in Tumbleton.
Yeah, or he's going to find out that that he burned his wife, or that she demands that he switch sides or something,
They definitely forgot about Hugh's wife.
Only took an episode.
Did he even say anything in this episode? Did he get a single word?
No, he was talking to, or he was, in that scene with Jace, and he was telling Ulf to
relax.
Well, he was telling Ulf to get to the yard and don't slack off, and sorry, my prince, Ulf doesn't know manners.
Right, because he's got more decorum.
Right, because he was, he's respected enough within the guild for whatever reason for them to represent them to the king, right?
Well, he's obviously dealt with like higher lords or men of a certain wealth or status before.
Yeah, like Tob Homot in the main series.
Right, exactly. Or Steely Pate.
I did not really appreciate his like Deadpool impression at the painted table. And then when he was like, "Don't you know that's the prince?" And then all of a sudden he like changes his tune. What bullshit! Could you not tell by his, I don't know, every single thing about him that he's very highborn? Like the dirt on his boots is like more fancy than anything you've ever seen. And you're just going to sit there and be like, yeah, fuck it. Ha ha ha. You need me. No. Even if you're a lush, I don't think that you would be like that at all. And I did not appreciate it.
How is Rhaenyra not saying, I made a terrible mistake? Just by looking at him.
Well, I mean, you could tell she is starting to think that. I mean, she does try to dress him down, although he ends up getting in his line and dressing her down. But she's trying to, but, he's too busy eating his quails.
It's back to the question of why didn't you like try to audition the Dragon Seas one by one. But then,
Right.
you know, like so many people just when people start to not come back, other people will check it out, right? If
Right.
Ulf, if they smother Ulf with his pillow tonight, you know, Hugh's gonna quit.
And that's not a book thing, right? Like we don't know how the dragon seeds necessarily were tested.
No, Jace said just have at it. Just do what you want.
And classic George is very unwilling to give that information up.
It's vague though, right? I have to imagine they did test them more individual.
I mean, they clearly. I mean, yeah, and it's hard.
How
to
do
say
you
because,
test?
You know, if you're, yeah, how do you like?
What is there to test?
No,
You
like-
don't. There was never any skill or anything needed to have a dragon before this. You were born with, you know, Targaryen blood or whatever. That was all it was. There's no like test you have to take and study for or anything or skills you need because they up until this point this was never done. So you
Well, no, I
either
know,
like
but
were
like
born into it or not.
I don't think that they would all have been thrown in the dragon pit together. Like what we saw as audience in the show version, the first guy that goes up, 10 people get killed just by dint of being nearby. So I have to imagine they'd be smarter about it than that IRL, but
Yeah, but you know, like it's at the same time, if you try to interview them, you know, you just, you know, it's like a job interview today. It's just, it's not actually going to tell you anything besides how
Right.
well you play the job interview game, you know?
Right. And going back to the finale itself, we are moving over to Harrenhal, where Alfred Broom arrives to meet with Daemon. When they meet privately in the Godswood, Sir Alfred heard his character trait on the wind, then suggests treason to Daemon to raise him as king. Sir Simon Strong overhears.
Pushback.
Exactly.
So clearly they haven't crafted Littlefinger's jetpack because this guy's been missing for like 2 episodes and just glad he's back.
It was the first time it felt natural.
Yeah, really. It was nice that something actually happened in Harrenhal.
Did Damon actually hear that word too, traitor?
I almost, with what they're doing with Damon, I want to say he did probably hear it and pretended he didn't, because now he's wiser to the world, but we'll get into that later. I'm not a fan of that.
I always find it amusing how people try to approach Damon with these schemes to, you know, like over, and then like they're like either, you know, like Corlys is speaking ill of Viserys in early season 1 or here, and then he always is quick to shut that down. So like people come to him knowing that he has that reputation, and he encourages that, but at the same time he just likes having, or he likes being in the position to shut that down himself.
Right.
Or it's kind of like I can drag my relative, my brother and my wife, all I want, my wife, niece, but don't you dare say a goddamn thing about them.
Right, and I'll drag my feet and hinder her war effort all by myself, thank you.
I don't need help, okay? Although I guess this is just me forgetting the source material, but like I was surprised at how just blunt Broom was just like, no, we'll make you king. You know, the lords will ride for that. You're a man, you have a penis, you know. We'll get hard for that.
Who wouldn't?
At the same time, he left after, you know, in the middle of Rhaenyra's dithering council sessions in the big part of this season, so.
Sure.
So will he also get visions from the heart tree? Since he's hearing things?
It's Harrenhal. It's
Damon's all
Harrenhal.
like, oh,
Everyone
don't worry
hears a
about
little
that.
something there.
Comes with the property.
Yeah, Damon even says like this place will make you bark at the moon.
Right.
So I think it is just like that ominous voice on the wind, kind of not stereotype. You
Trope.
guys know what I'm saying. Yeah, trope. Thank you.
I really hope we get like a new strain of intensely strong weed or mushrooms called Harrenhal or Damon or something.
Right.
Maybe some DMT. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weirwood.
Call this one the ghost of Reinhardt, man. That's
This shit'll make you see your descendants, man.
In the future.
it's so funny because oh god, I could podcast for an hour and a half just about that alone. Who was it Duncan or was it Michael that did that whole essay on like drug use in Westeros? We got to get them to update.
All right, and then moving back to King's Landing, we have Aemon and his counselor discussing the new riders Rhaenyra has recruited, and Aemon says all cargo is to be searched, slowing down the only sustenance the city folk have, which then transitions into a scene with Alicent and Helena speaking about the unhappiness of the small folk and themselves when Aemon comes to demand Helena to take wing. Alicent calls her son's insecurity out and Aemon leaves.
So suddenly, Aemon now has the capability to stop and search boats coming ashore. Or no one really, like, no one was doing that before, but now it's a good idea.
Well, it's like the whole thing. Like my security is perfect, nothing gets through. The second something gets through, all right, we have to do everything.
How long has it been since Rhaenyra's boats of food?
Gotta be like a week. But I mean, well, because he's mad that they took out small folk.
Right, for the dragon seeds.
Oh, but I see. Ever since they got the food and they didn't start doing it, then is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, they could have had wildfire on those boats to attack the city.
Woulda, coulda,
That would
shoulda.
have been cool.
You could have just had men on there and stormed the walls or something. It just seems like there was absolutely no attention on the harbour. I know you're blockaded, but surely you have men on the walls.
I mean, this episode again shows us how easy it is to sneak in and out of King's Landing or Dragonstone or any stronghold, I guess. You don't even need a shadow baby.
Yeah, as a master of ships, this blockade is not really doing what it should say on the tin.
Not a good job, huh?
Never send a lamprey pie to do a shadow baby's work. That's all I gotta say.
Did they even mention, you know, like Rosby and Stokeworth for requisitioning supplies from them?
No, they just mentioned Sharp Point like 5 times. Is that even an actual place?
Well, that's
No,
what
it's
Genuinely
just
exactly.
had to look it up.
Not anymore.
Yeah, it is.
Genuinely had to look that up, man. It was I was sitting there like,
it's
what
not
the
the house
hell?
of it's not the seat of House Massey. It's like like Bar Emmon maybe.
Let's make sure this is
Oh,
really
okay.
important. It'll come back up later in the main series.
It, I'm looking at it now, and it's right in between the gullet and high tide. So
So
it's right
that
there at the
gives
gullet.
it a better context then, but they didn't give it to us.
Right, and that's why you know, like Jay stormed in to the Ulf and Few. Like Sharp Point just got burned and they just got news of it on Team Black, and it's just like, oh, where are the dragon seeds? But okay, so with Aemond and Helena, I don't think this is such an, you know, Aemond has gone about it in the entirely wrong way, but I don't think this is so unreasonable an ask from him.
Well, it's an
Uh,
expected ask.
Considering they're not going full Mad Woman in the Attic with Helena.
Yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad ask, but how he asked and how he reacted certainly was not good.
Yeah.
I will give the kudos to Allison for actually confronting him for once.
Right.
No, this is just an entire. This is like we'll get to this more during her conversation with Rhaenyra, but this is just her, like splitting and cycling between,
Right.
like which child will I vilify today? And today it's Aemond, since he fired her from the small council and stole her position as regent, quote unquote, stole her position as regent.
She's just got a spin board. She wakes up every morning,
Yep.
picks which child. Yep.
Or Rhaenyra.
Oh, that's
Okay.
like half of it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I liked her standing up to him, and I thought that was good. I mean, she is, that Helena is the darling daughter, and if you go for her, that's what's going to bring the claws out, I think, as we saw.
I did think this made sense with the show canon in terms of a non-combatant dragon rider being called into it. I think they've kind of gone down the route of it's more of the dragon rather than the rider who's really in charge in terms of battle skill. So I think it's a reasonable ask.
No, I would agree. And I do think it is at some point in the war she would be asked to mount. But I do think it's too kind of that symbiotic relationship the riders and dragons have. Because even we saw with Sea Snoke before she claimed a rider, just flying about and everything, but we haven't seen Dreamfire at all.
You mean that vague dragon head in 106 wasn't enough for you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to remember that? No, but this just reeks of the very bad plotting and timing they did. Why weren't we getting more of Aemond and Helena? They would make the scenes that they did in this episode so much better and mean so much more.
Yeah, and Helena just flat out refusing when, and this also just it's part of a wider piece of both of Team Green family dynamics, but also the Flanderization this season of it's only the men who want war, and it makes the scene fall flat to me. And then the cherry on top is just Fia Saban's childish dialogue of, I don't want to. I was happier before I became queen. Also, is Alicent feeding her moon tea? Because she's like, here, drink this.
I was wondering that.
Because she's preparing to run off with Helena.
Right, the same way Laris is with Aegon. I don't know. All right, but moving into the battle, I guess not the battle portion, but a battle camp. So Gawain draws his sword on Crispy and asks if he thinks nothing of his oath. The incels a monologue, but the two knights see eye to eye from the PTSD and future dragon warfare. Anybody else ready for Sir Crispin to die?
I think this was actually one of the best scenes he's had so far. I liked the more philosophical Cole, and the what are we doing this all for when we're just nothing with these dragons?
I do too, but I'm almost so tired of him at this point.
I thought the same thing, David, of oh, now that they're getting ready to be done with him, they're going to give him sustenance. Awesome.
Right.
Well, that's with every character in this show, right? This season.
unfortunately.
You have to have the spotlight before you die, but then another character is slated to die before you, so they have to have the spotlight first.
It's so bizarre, though. It's like, why couldn't that have been in the last episode? That whole scene would have been nice right there.
Writers got to start studying 3-act plays again.
I'm enjoying PTSD Cole.
Yeah.
See, don't get me wrong. I like it. I
I feel like I'm a lot more
just,
amusing.
it's just, oh my God. So, so,
I like
such
it too.
such
The
bad
pace is
pacing and focus. Yeah.
correct.
It just,
Yeah.
I should enjoy it a lot more than I'm
Yeah.
begrudgingly.
It's not that it's bad. Like I said, if this had been the second to last episode, it would have been a great episode. I probably would have given it closer to a 4. But as a season finale, I don't know what we're doing.
Oh, I enjoyed this scene, but it was shit overall.
I feel like they just should have, since they're chopping it up into weird ways, they should have just done Rook's Rest as the last episode and have some of this sort of Fallout stuff intercut with it more. We didn't need like 10 ayahuasca trips in Harrenhal to get us there. It was all, no.
I will give them credit where credit's due. I did like Cole comparing Alicent to a beacon, like the High Tower.
I did too. That whole monologue he had was really well done and acted masterfully. It just didn't fit where it went. And then, I don't know, it's like when when you try to light a match and then it burns out before you can light your candle with it. That's how this entire episode felt. It felt like we went through an entire box of matches and never got our birthday candles lit.
I like that comparison.
So you're saying the episode was not lit?
Is that what that means? I never knew that.
Yeah, like lit. It's cool. It's good. It's fire.
I thought it was always about just marijuana.
I'm sure that's where it started.
Oh, okay.
That too.
Be okay. The more you know.
But like I want this character to like be punished, but not like this. That's the kind of the core of Martin's writing, though, isn't it? I want Theon to be punished, but not like this. I want Cersei to be punished, but not like this.
Right, and it's kind of the same way that I've always argued that you're supposed to see Joffrey's death as a tragedy, because you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, get rid of this guy, and then you see like how horrible it is because his mother's screaming and he's just a kid, and I maybe I like it a little more than I had previously thought.
No, but I will like to see him shot full of arrows next season. But
it'll be satisfying.
I think though it's why A Song of Ice and Fire is like grabs all of us, is because in a lot of ways it is sort of an allegory for real life celebrity, real life political figures who in general we see them do crazy or terrible or tasteless things, and we do want to see them have their comeuppance, but we don't necessarily want them to be tortured, because at the end of the day, we can look at almost all of them, and say, well, there but for the grace of God go I. There but for a few circumstances go I. I might have made the same mistake in a similar position too. And that's why George's writing is so strong, is the human element of it really does get down to the core of. It's why I really like the phrase, in Valyrian, like all men must die, all men must serve. It's very true, and all men make mistakes. All people have bad days and bad times and bad choices. if you were in their shoes, could you really do a different thing? And we all want to sit there and say, yeah, I would never do that. I would never sack Winterfell. I would never kill kids. But would you, if you had the same pressures and you lived in that world? You don't know. And that, I do think House of the Dragon has done masterfully in highlighting that part of George's writing, for sure. It's just, there's a lot of issues with pace and which parts of the story are told when that I'm having a big issue with, and how much focus is put on minor details as opposed to lack of focus on major details.
That said, I think, they are going to give us a moment of, right before Crispy dies, Crispy's got to, double down in some odious manner on, fuck Rhaenyra or something like that, right?
Incel's got an incel.
Even in this episode, right? We have a lot of sympathies that we're forming for Rhaenyra, and we're supposed to be. And I, even watching it, the one thing I did say it intrigued me is, as I'm watching it, I'm sitting there and I'm really rooting for her now more than ever before. And I had to keep reminding myself how that story actually ends, and I was sitting there and saying, man, for the Unsullied, how are they going to ever justify the end game here of how her life ends? And then it was that scene, but when Alicent comes to Dragonstone, that reminded me, oh, right, this is how, because it isn't just this one-sided thing. And the dance is a very complex political time of turmoil, and history. It's not just, oh, there's a winner, there's a loser, there's a good guy, a bad guy. There's good and bad choices on all sides, even within individual people. I wouldn't say any one of these characters is necessarily like, oh, they're just a bastard, like maybe a select few. But most of the time it's like, yeah, tough choices. Well, what would Alicent have done? And that conversation at the end was kind of, proof of that. Well, you could just take the throne. Like, yeah, it's not that easy. Well, what would you have had me do? Just let you take the throne? It's not that easy either. You think these people wouldn't still rise up at some point?
So, back in Essos, Sir Tybalt is fighting with the captain in a mud pit, eventually winning over the sails to the crown's cause.
Die.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, but also they could have done all of these scenes in one.
They could have.
This evokes certain
They
memories.
could have been.
Like,
Please go ahead.
sorry, just Brienne and Loras fighting in the battle for the cloaks. But obviously this meant absolutely nothing, except for was it Bina you commented in the chats about what was the line from Lohar? I only sail with strapping people who can beat me or whatever.
Yeah, it's just I really don't know. Somebody say something smart, because
That was it.
this is where the burnout
Cheesy
comes.
Renfair acting.
I mean, I had fun with it. Like I said, I had fun with this stuff. I wasn't necessary, although I mean, on some level, it is some of it's necessary to the plot because we have to get those ships. But I had fun with it. I thought it was cute, and it added a little levity, gave us something to do.
It was just a quick one. It was just a finale full of filler. And anyone who's watched anime, this was such a just filler moment.
Yep.
It's a beach episode.
Yeah.
This
yeah,
whole
kind
side
of.
plot to Lise is the anime beach episode.
And that's not good when you have a mud fight in it. And I'm thinking about how a mud fight at the Ren Fair is better. At least they eat the mud, I don't know. It's my biggest issue with these scenes. While they're somewhat fun, they could have been condensed for sure.
Right, and also just like the next generation on Team Black feels very underwritten compared to the When Doves Cry saga of Team Green, about how like everything fits together because so much has been written about Team Green. Like we could have had. Okay, we have a scene of Jason Bela right after this, but we haven't had much between them all season. And it's yeah, it's just been a bit of a bummer because, speaking of the spotlight, Jace is not long for this world, and they're they've since they've aged Bela up and they've aged Moondancer up, they gave her a nice spot on Moondancer, but then they're not doing anything with her afterwards.
It really,
And
it would have been great to see a tender
between
moment.
this, right, between this and like Damon's twiddling his thumbs in Heron Hall and the like umpteenth Rhaenyra council scene or the Sister Act scene, we could have had a lot more depth to the younger generation of Team Black.
No, you're completely right. And speaking of Jason Bela, Bela calls Jace out for sulking and tells him what doesn't matter being upset when there's shit to be done. Meanwhile, in the Vale, her sister Rhaena sleeps on cold ground.
I like this scene. It just shows that, yes, while like what Jace goes through is important to him because it's his life and he's the one who has to deal with it 24/7. He's also not the first one, and he's already delivered results for Team Black, and we say the payoff for that at the end in the ending montage.
I mean, to be fair, none of this generation of Team Black gets all that much depth as individual characters in the book itself. So, I mean, I don't feel like, having read the book, I don't feel like I know most of these characters very well, like I do with most of George's stuff. So,
I disagree because so Bela and Rhaena are the Arya and Sansa of Team Black, and like Jace is the Baelor Breakspear character, right? Or the able prince that never sat the throne. Just 14 years old instead of a grown man with children.
Right, and
Face size too young. Sorry, man.
no, you're good. No, I was just gonna say, and like that's the unfortunate part is like even if you didn't get much of these characters in the books because they were too small or too ancillary in terms of the wider story, what they did with the show almost seemed to promise us more,
Mm-hmm.
but they still fell flat, and that's why it's unfortunate.
Right, and it falls flat for time. Is just like with Bela and Rhaena especially because they cut that scene of Damon hugging them after Lena's death. They like there was a cut scene with Bela and Rhaenys last season, and it's hard to adapt them into larger roles and stay true to the source material instead of combining Rhaena with Nettles because like Rhaena's in the Vale waiting for morning to hatch, but she's the Sansa of Team Black, and that doesn't have to be limiting if you're the right personality type and if you have more to do. And it seems a little odd considering the thesis of the show that they would put her in a position of direct martial power. But yeah, in the book, Bela's dragon isn't old enough to ride, and she only gets on Moondancer as an absolute emergency after Rhaenyra's already been punched on by Sunfire.
Does anyone else get for like OG Charlie and the Chocolate Factory fans. Anyone get Veruca Salt vibes from Jace? I want it now, Daddy.
Yeah.
No.
Oh my god.
Just me.
If she had a daddy complex, for sure. God, that's all I'm gonna think when I see him. The 2 scenes before he dies next year.
I don't see it. I would hope that, you know, like him going out in front of the gullet, they don't out in front of the other dragon seeds, they don't turn that into a Hagen at Rook's Rest thing of his inferiority complex taking over and saying, "Oh no, I have to go burn more ships than the dragon seeds to prove I'm a worthy heir." You know, but
No,
What's gonna happen?
exactly.
yeah,
So
I see, and I don't want that to happen either because that's again just a problem with how they did everything, like how they paced everything and added and subtracted and condensed, whatever. Every time they gave us like something good in Jace and something that we could all be like, oh, okay, that's a rightful heir. This man's thinking forward. They would give us another scene where we'd take him 2 steps back and he would call somebody a racial slur like mongrels or something, you know?
see, I think it's a good thing writing wise that he has a flaw, and that is, you know, tied to his own insecurity about his parentage, even if it's not expressed in a politically correct way for us, the
Sure.
viewers. But because, you know, otherwise in the book he doesn't really appear to have any kind of flaw besides, you know, just like not having the foresight to see how the dragon seeds could turn out.
Right. It's just unfortunate we didn't get enough time with him to really feel that
Yeah,
way.
right. And it's just, yeah, it is just, you know, like a bummer that it could have, you know, like we could have had him negotiating with Jane Eyre and Cregan in episode 1 instead of just, you know, like poo-pooing the idea of the White Walkers at the wall.
All right. And then back in Essos again, Sir Tylenol sings a bawdy song, and after it is announced that they will sail to the gullet tomorrow, Captain Lohar asks Tybolts to father children on their wives. Plural. Wives. Again, yeah, I don't know. These Tylenol scenes, they're fine, I guess. Annoying. But to me, you know what? I think what it is to me is like this season has really solidified that they're all about the short scenes, and these are those short scenes that don't work, at least for me.
How many of their wives do you think he ended up with? And how many little Lannisters, I guess bastard Lannisters, are there running around? Essos, all over Essos. I guess now, anytime in any future story we see a blonde over in Essos, we'll know where he came from.
Oh, but those are fighting words over the sailor's wife in Bravos.
Is that the theory that that's Taisha?
Taisha.
Yeah.
With her daughter, Lana.
Uh, uh, I don't like that. Y'all got any real thoughts on this one though?
Not really. We're about to approach the part in my notes where it just becomes all caps and lots of swears.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at this point in my notes I tried to just write as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I feel you on this, man. Like, it got tough at this point.
It really did. And I was already bored. um, so going back to Westeros, at dinner with the Dragon Riders, Ulf continues to show his glutton. Rhaenyra speaks to them that they must learn their mounts and commands, as they will fly out 2 days hence to break their enemies. The Queen receives message from Sir Simon about his worries, and she asks Adam to join her.
Did the Maester pull her aside for this, Rhaenyra, for the message, or?
Yeah, he did pull her aside. That was oddly
Okay,
enough
good.
something I made sure I watched, that he pulled her aside.
Okay,
Mm.
good. I forgot about that part.
I have enjoyed, Dragon Seed scenes in this episode. Really good. They're doing a kind of a Hugh Ulf book hybrid, I think, for Ulf. I think it's yet to be seen what they're going to do with Hugh.
Yeah, they do seem to be giving him some more sympathy, even if he is still a bit of a brute.
I think that's good though. The nuance is good because in the books you do just have these two deplorable pieces of work.
Well, yeah, in the book, isn't it just Ulf the Sot and Hugh is just even brutal? That's about it.
It definitely makes it seem. It definitely makes it like very more fascinated and interested in what are they going to do with Hugh next season, considering how we know it turns out. I'm pretty interested to see, curious about that. How are they going to write that up?
It was a good choice. I think if they had two cowardly, dick swinging assholes, it would be a bit much, And I think Ulf's actor, probably not very well known to North Americans, but he's done some stuff in the UK and is pretty good comedic actor. Does a really good job of kind of filling the role of both of them, I think.
That's good. I'm glad he's gotten more work because he is clearly a talented actor from seeing him on this.
He's got a talent for eating quails, because apparently for this scene he had to eat 20 of them with all the shooting and the reshoots and whatever. He ate them every time, and he was starting to feel sick by the end of it. They say in the whatchamacallit, in the House of Dragons built.
They fed him actual quail.
Oh yeah, well he was eating. He had to eat every one of them. In fact, there's a montage in the House of Dragons built where they put numbers on the screen, like 1 quail, 2 quails, 3 quails, and he ate something like 20 of them.
Yeah, family dinner scene is always the worst for editing.
Right. Especially when you have to reshoot and
Mm-hmm.
get this angle and that angle and
Continuity.
I thought they were giving him capons, but quail makes more sense.
Well, they said
At least
quail. I don't know what they actually fed him. They didn't say in that what it was, but he said little birds.
Could that have been a callback with the Hound and Arya back in Game of Thrones and him having
Yes.
to eat so many fucking chickens?
Or Danny with the gummy bear horse heart.
Right, and it's
Yes.
just like at this dinner scene, Rhaenyra is, giving Ulf a stern reminder, but she's not also, ordering him to be taken out and hanged, for his
No,
manners,
she's just doing an ocular pat down.
Yeah.
An ocular.
But I like that she asked Adam to come with her to Harrenhal, and the camera does linger on Jace a little bit to seem like, Mom, why are you doing that? But but it's to show Daemon that she has other options, right?
Maybe put him in his place a little bit.
Daemon, not Jace. I don't think she meant anything.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Jace.
I think that's what I'm saying. I think it was to put Damon in his place, not so much Chase.
Yeah, it has been an open question about what Daemon would think about the dragon seats, but I've always been on team he doesn't care, because it's always kind of been his plan to find riders for them.
Okay. So the Woods Witch of Harrenhal wakes Damon up to invite him to the Godswood. He sees a green man and is shown the sights of Werewoods and the future, aka the Throne Show. He then sees Rhaenyra on the throne, a sign that she must rule, as Helena speaks to him from King's Landing. which before we get into the next scene, which, coincides with that. This is really where I was just like, ugh, really?
Yeah.
There's a lot to break down, I think.
Right.
Let's take it from the top.
Yeah. Take us away, Hannah.
So I was really nervous seeing her on his bed. I'm like, oh God, here we go. I really thought this was going to be more like weird incest sex shit. Like,
No, she's saving that for Aemond.
Right.
Rips off her face. Here's mommy.
Oh no.
yeah, and honest to Christ, I really think that it would have been better to do this if he had just woken up already in the Godswood. It would have been more creepy.
Agreed.
So I guess we definitely have to talk about what he actually saw. We saw White Walkers, which were yet again bringing that whole thing in, which I'm sure certain people are going to be very upset about here. But it's interesting that, if the whole thing is about the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy, we get Daenerys here instead of Jon Snow, which was kind of an interesting choice. I mean, Daenerys is also their descendants, so I guess that's part of it. And they were trying to really focus on the dragon eggs, I think, as like showing the continuity here.
Well, too, and one of the things that kind of bothered me is like they focused on Bloodraven as well, and
Right.
then just giving Daemon these dreams alone is like, yeah, I understand that him and Rhaenyra are, the precursors to that bloodline or family line or whatever, but like I always assumed Bloodraven was a three-eyed raven because of his Blackwood heritage, not Targaryen.
Yeah, the link to the old gods, right? First man.
Also, what a fucking wasted opportunity to show us a glimpse of Summerhall. Am I right?
Facts.
You don't want to give away the ending of your next spinoff.
What a terrible, terrible waste. But like only we would have known barely what it is, and the only part of this that I really did care for was the shot that's not Amelia Clark, but Danny. I thought that was cool. But I'm like, man, you're trying to cash in on some of that Dune heat right now, which, oh my God, don't get me started on that.
No.
See, and I think that's what bothered me about a lot of these flashes that Damon saw is like it could have been cool, but like because it's trying so hard to draw into the throne show, which like I'm famously not watch. Like I don't that doesn't do anything for me as somebody who never watched Game of Thrones.
Don't
Like
watch it,
it could
mother.
it could have been interesting, but like I don't it almost seems like because the White Walkers coming down past the wall has absolutely nothing to do with the Dance of the Dragons. I don't. It did the visions did nothing
Oh,
for me.
no, it does. It's all about the Song of Ice and Fire, Aegon's dream.
Oh well, we didn't get a knife shot in this episode, so
Yeah. You don't need that. It ties in perfectly. Like, you don't need any of that. And again, it's just a case of Hollywood really selling their own audiences short. Like, oh, these people are too stupid to follow along. So we need to connect those dots for them, or they'll never be able to do it themselves.
I do think and I agree, Hannah, but I do think in all fairness, just by kind of going through the community of the Unsullied, that's exactly, what they want. There's constant tying and a tethering of Game of Thrones to House of the Dragon, almost like they cannot be separated by these people and the viewers who are watching. So in a sense, I mean, it's referenced in and out like almost all the time when I see it on social media. I mean, a comparison getting the lore confused because people haven't read the books and they're just pulling from Game of Thrones. It's really a tethered mess, and I think it just kind of ultimately pulls down to like fan service to the people who just watched Game of Thrones. And hey, remember those White Walker guys? Hey, we're about that too. This is all us. It's all together, which is so unfair to the book material for House of the Dragon because it can stand on its own like nobody's business. It doesn't need that. And I think it sucks because show watchers, people who didn't read the book, aren't going to get that. It
Exactly.
absolutely does
Honest
not
to God,
need
it's
any of
more than
that
a
from Game of Thrones.
shoehorn. This is closer to like the original Cinderella story where they like cut off their heel and their toes to fit into the slipper. You know what I mean? It's a mess. And I don't like it as a plot device for why Daemon changes his tune about Rhaenyra's rule. Again, it's just very misogynistic. It so undercuts. No, I'm going to follow you because you know what? In the time that I've been away, you have proven that you're a strong leader. Like, and you are my wife, and I should follow you.
But has she? But has
Oh
she?
no, it's because magic and White Walkers. That's why I'm gonna follow you. Fuck off. I don't
mean,
like.
he doesn't even know he has children, so he's got to get like a hallucinogenic trip to tell him what to do.
But I don't really have the bandwidth to rage about the prophecy, but this really just brings it
Hold
up
my beard now.
another level. And it's one, I am really, like you can, have the dramatic irony of, like trying to avoid a prophetic fate or fulfill a prophetic fate and then do the opposite, right? But to, like what I just don't really have much patience for protect the true timeline type of stories. And this is what it feels like. This aspect of, like science fiction or, like it in the hands of a writer that is not as deft as, say, George R.R. Martin, who has the restraint to keep it in the deep background, and for only a very motivated reader to pick up on. It's a crutch, and it's just like, like why would Daemon, who is so into being a Targaryen and a Dragon Lord, be okay with a quote unquote true timeline that involves his house being deposed to the point where Daenerys has to hatch the eggs in exile?
Yeah, and not.
Well, he doesn't know this.
Why would
maybe
Viserys not share any of that with him from the get-go? Because if Damien is one thing, it is like all about being a Targ,
That I actually think is meant for dramatic irony of Daemon is clearly spending his entire life in search of a grand purpose. And this is the grand purpose that he's been searching for his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
That, but it could be enough, going back to what you said, Hannah, about it not being about him respecting his wife or even respecting his brother's wishes for his brother's throne, but about, just like this, and this is how he's saying, you can still say, okay, you can still like work that in with the last Patty dream of, like him saying, no, I actually don't want the throne. I want to be a badass. And, like this is the moment I've been waiting for my entire life to be my kin's champion in the field. And and maybe if Viserys had told him about the prophecy, he would have actually joined the Night's Watch and solved Viserys's problem of having Daemon around for him.
Yeah.
The weird part for me is that they've made pretty much the entire motivation for both Rhaenyra and Daemon, and now to a certain extent Alicent as well, this whole prophecy, which turns out not to be much. You know, I mean, I like going back to Game of Thrones, and I don't have a problem with it like some of you do, but I mean, in the end, neither Danny nor John does all that much in the end. Spoiling here, but you know, like, so
Mm-hmm.
if this is going to be like all their motivation pretty much for the entire war, really, if you think about it, then for what? It didn't come to anything. Which
Yeah,
is a very
exactly.
George, which if it turns out that way in the books would be a very George thing, I think, to have this whole thing build up to nothing. It wasn't really them anyways.
Actually, I would disagree with that. He's been quoted multiple times as saying if you've set up the entire story that the butler did it in a murder mystery, that you have to follow through on the butler did it, even if, you know, you're releasing it in serialized format and the audience is starting to speculate, oh, the butler did it.
Right.
I'm sorry. All this is doing, this is the root rage of this episode for me. All this is doing is changing House Targaryen's words to, "I'm not a messenger boy. I'm a delivery boy." That is it. Their entire purpose of House Targaryen and the Valyrian Empire is to give a child a dagger. And that's what they're retconning. That is what they're trying to retcon, and they're trying to make us enjoy it, forget it, rate it, respect it. I don't really care. It just hurts me every time. Every time I see that dagger, every time they mention A Song of Ice and Fire, which hurts because it's a beautiful name for a beautiful book series. Oh my god, I need a drink.
I'm way ahead of you, dude.
Yeah,
It's
Noah, I
rough.
mean, well said. It is. It's painful at a certain point.
And also, it's the midichlorian factor of bringing it full and forward, you know, just to explicitly talk about it. You could justify it at the beginning, which I believe I did, by saying, yeah, but they're behind closed, you know, Viserys is saying this to Rhaenyra behind closed doors. But they've leaned on it so much to the point where it's become a crutch. And
I'd have had so much more respect for them if they just left it. If they didn't even acknowledge. Some people liked season 8, some people didn't. Great. Whatever, leave it in the past. And just move on and tell this story. As you were saying, Steph, like how Fire and Blood, The Dance of Dragons, Princess and the Queen, Rogue Prince, whatever, all of those stories stand on their own without it being linked to the main story, aside from some family names and a few little cool things. It's perfectly fine on its own. And there is so much there for them to work with that they don't need to be tying it into this. And I can only see it as money grabbing. That's it. Remember this show that we made that pissed the fuck out of everyone? And yeah, and I'm sure that we touched upon this earlier, I was legally streaming this whole season. Thank God I did. I'm sure there's fucking adverts for the DVD of seasons 1 through 8 hitting your screen straight after.
Nope.
Buy the
There aren't
merch. Oh, okay.
See,
Well,
and I think you just hit on exactly like why I'm like immediately burnt out and why my notes on the last half of this episode are 3 to 4 sentences because it doesn't need that connection. It doesn't have to draw back to a different IP that made them money, especially because in the series proper, if this whole prophecy that Aegon had is a thing, the whole thing about it is that George wrote that Rhaegar was the one that refounded the prophecy and set the whole books into motion. So like even just doing this as such a like subtle nod, like, oh, we got the dagger, it's the Song of Ice and Fire. Don't you remember the Game of Thrones show? Remember Dany? Remember John? It goes so against the whole crux of this one bookish Targaryen who refounded whatever prophecy and went into the yard the next day to be a swordsman.
Wait, well, actually, yeah, but he was doing that because he was reading the scrolls, but he was also corresponding with Maester Aemon.
Right.
I don't look. He had, this is like the thing about prophecy. It's on the one hand, it makes sense for the Targaryens at this point to be talking about it, and for the Dance of the Dragons to be the point where the chain of telephone is lost, and then for Maester Aemon's generation to refind it, which leads to Summerhall, but then the Rhaegar is the last Targaryen to take it seriously.
Right, especially because Martin pairs it with the Blackfyre rebellions. It's almost like a perverted mirror of the dance,
So, but again, this is I think the problem is in the delivery. It's one thing to reason with yourself but Viserys and Rhaenyra are behind closed doors. They're talking about this, and then to make the entire series about the prophecy. I mean, thank God we didn't see Aemond taking the prophecy dagger and putting it in the fire, because he's an edgelord who read the histories and knows that there are cryptic Valyrian runes to be found on the dagger, right?
I forgot about that. I forgot about that, and just the heinous theft from.
Right. So just what if it's about the way they just keep talking about it. It does take the mystery about it, which is out of it, which is why I mentioned the midi-chlorians before. So what if before Jace flying to Winterfell, Rhaenyra said, "Jace, I must speak with you," and then that earlier this season we see, or when Jace is actually face to face with Cregan, we have him saying, saying my mother has told me something very concerning about the North. Cut. And then after we rejoin them, Cregan says, "You have my support."
And then people would be like, "What the fuck happened there?"
It's the interpretation of prophecy, right? I've got no issues with it. I to your point, it's just trying to explain everything, having an answer for everything. The ambiguity is the beauty in the prophecy. What's his name? Maester Muscles, Sam's guy, Marwyn, is it'll bite your prick off every time. It's out for interpretation. Everybody gets it wrong. Nobody gets it right, and nobody really knows what it actually meant in the end. And so many people have fucked up and died. That's it. That's the grayness. There is no answer, and they have tried to answer everything unequivocally and failed.
And that's the beauty of how Maester Aemon even says they got it wrong. A dragon is a he or a she as it wills, and the prophecy wasn't always a man. It was one, and it loses all of that human error in the beauty of prophecy.
Right, but he's saying that in the context of Martin. That is Martin putting a big red arrow on look for Daenerys, right? Because Maester Aemon's even saying, "I must go to Daenerys," but of course he dies before that can happen.
I don't know. It's
I don't like it. It removes time. Making this about the true timeline now. It removes a lot of agency from the characters.
Mm-hmm.
To me.
No, I would agree.
But it was ordained this way. No, it was not.
I tell you, this episode and yesterday, that was my long night.
I was just waiting. I was just waiting to see Bran in that vision somewhere.
Yeah.
I was kind of disappointed that we didn't like get Bran peeking out of a tree or something
I
somewhere.
mean, we got the three-eyed raven, so
Right, we did.
I mean,
crow, whichever.
I would have enjoyed it more if it was just like, instead of a weird face, it was just like Bran mooning us all.
Right.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm sorry. I did this as well. This is the culmination of probably 2 seasons, but I haven't rewatched season 1, but see a full season of not my Damon, not my fucking Damon. He's
Hashtag
not the
not my
Rogue
Damon.
Prince.
Hashtag I can fix them.
It looks like that's what they're trying to do, but not my Damon just explains it correctly. Like in the first season, he said it to Rhaenyra that what dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did, and now you're down with it now. I thought that was completely unsellable, like
No,
completely
agreed,
Worst.
and
unsellable.
especially. Go ahead, no.
No, go man, go.
No, I was gonna say I just agree completely, especially because then we get Helena talking to Damon through the weirwood dream or whatever, which I guess unironically or unintendedly links dragon magic and weirwood magic. But
Did he ever acknowledge Helena's existence?
probably not.
Right.
But from that transition, we get Aemon confronting Helena on the battlements, and thankfully not pushing her over. And then she calls him out for attacking their brother and how Aemon can't change his
Yeah.
fate.
That I liked. I liked this scene a lot.
You can definitely see Aemon's face break, or sorry, you can definitely see Aemon's heart break in real time as he's on the verge of tears.
Right. You're not going to be important. You're not ending up on the throne. Like, he's been like ready to be on that throne by himself and in charge completely all this time. And it's like, nope, it's not going to happen, bro. And literally, bro. and I know what you did last summer.
And I'm never gonna fuck you.
Right.
What?
Like,
I think you're so right there. They muddled the fucking magic on this one. Like, my god.
It's such a mess. I don't understand.
Like, it just felt very, very, very season 8. Just like, it's all fucking wizards and shit. Whatever, man. Like, she can do this. Fine.
Okay,
D&D has more structure.
I'm giving them. I'm more optimistic on the Aemon front because if they're, like they've paid very little attention to him being perceived as a kinslayer this season, and my hope is that he's the one doing the dramatic irony of fighting like hell to avert a prophecy, and then goes into it. Although it is hard to, if he's that like terrified, or if he's that like resistant to it, why would he even engage Daemon on near Harrenhal? Besides the fact that Daemon just sets out a challenge for him and says, Neener, I'm in Harrenhal, come and get me, bitch. But I there is I understand what they were trying to do with Daemon's overall character development this season, because they need to make him into someone who will walk away from Rhaenyra when she's breaking guest right to punish him, and to afterwards give his life in a way that will benefit her.
He's already walked away from her.
Well, he tried, as he says later.
I mean, what is he doing? A brown band plum? Like, it's just, I don't know. The worst part is that apologies if I'm jumping ahead slightly, but the worst part is that the scene where he does bend the knee to her and he rallies the men. That I feel like is one of the few scenes, probably the only scene this season, aside from maybe his little snide look at the dinner table when blood and cheese are mentioned. That's Damon.
Yeah, we didn't get nearly enough of that Damon at all.
Yeah, like he took
No, we just
they split up his dealings with the Brackens. So at like the stuff between the Blackwoods and the Brackens should have just been within one episode, or it was all within the same battle. It's the Blackwoods go onto the Bracken lands, and yes, they start like despoiling septs, etc. But then Damon leads another force to take Stonehenge and go, neener neener, I got your castle. That would have been fun.
There's I think I can't remember who mentioned it in the chat, but there's like some stunning shots of Harrenhal here. It looks incredible.
Yeah.
Got to give them props, credit where credit's due. But with all of the trippy ass bullshit we've seen this season, where is anything about Harren the Black and the curse? And we could have seen
Loki, honest.
some like past
Wasn't there a weird corpse on the throne?
in this episode.
No, just at the beginning when Damon first arrived in Harrenhal. Didn't they show us something like that earlier in the season?
I don't recall.
I mean, something about Harren the Black would have been great. Something in the dreams or whatever, just anything to kind of flesh out the world and actually use the filler well.
If we were going to spend so much time there, then at least let people know, show people why
Yeah.
Harrenhal is
Right.
the way that it is, why the entire country feels the same way about Harrenhal. It's not just some house on a haunted hill. This place is it's the
100%,
Overlook
yeah.
Hotel from The Shining. It is a living, breathing organism. It's a living, breathing organism, and this is why people are so afraid. This is not some random ghost tour haunted house. And you're gonna spend all that time in Harrenhal, show it for what it is. Talk about Harren the Black, flesh it out. And they didn't. We didn't get any of that. And the people who don't know is they're seeing such a cheap layer, such a piece of paper of like what Harrenhal really and truly is, and that's just another big mistake.
Speaking of Harrenhal, Rhaenyra and Adam arrive at Harrenhal, where she meets the goat, Sir Simon. After he leads her into the Great Hall, Damon and her speak in High Valyrian. She comments that he sounds like her father, and Damon bends his knee to the Queen Rhaenyra.
I actually like this scene. I liked
Yep.
Cyrax, the shot of Cyrax from the top, foreshadowing the
Super
dragon
cool.
pit.
Yeah, that was great, and I totally took it as foreshadowing as well.
Super, super cool. And yeah, I totally agree. Like that, I think again when we there have been some great nuggets in this, but it has just undermined the frustration for me.
No, this scene was like one entire lemon cake for me. So, and I gave it a 1.5. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I like this scene a lot, and I guess unlike you guys, I focus on the things I like instead of focusing on what we didn't get or what I wished we got or whatever. I mean, this scene is good, and I liked it, and full stop.
You're in the wrong place, David. We're here to
I know.
hate.
I know. Well,
God bless you, David. God bless you, mate.
I mean, it's just like there's no point in getting angry about what we don't get. I don't get that. Like, I get that you want to see things and you hope things are going to happen, but it feels like we're spending a lot more time talking about what didn't happen than what did happen, or what we wish had happened. And I guess
and you're right. We should be taking it, as we get it, enjoying that we're even getting it. But as playfully as we like to be, it's not that we totally all hate it. It's more It's not that I'm mad, I'm disappointed. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, and that's fine, but it's just we've been going on for like 2.5 hours now about what things that didn't happen or what we haven't done, and like I'd rather just talk about the episode that's here and what we thought of it.
This is what the
Personally.
kids want, man. This is what the kids want. This is what they're gonna swipe left for on Grindr.
The score is absolutely beautiful,
Mhm.
absolutely gorgeous. The production value of this show
Yep.
just takes my breath away every single time.
No, and
Every
the
single time.
design that Rhaenyra had on her dress with the like cool little dragon head pauldron on her dress thing, that was awesome.
Through Rhaenyra, did you see what Simon was wearing?
Yo, fuck yeah, dude. Oh my God, talk about the drip master. Yeah, for all the complaints, this show has been nothing but beautiful in design,
And
costuming,
certainly Harrenhal. I mean,
DOP. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
they found the spot up in Wales on the beach and on the shores there, and it's just gorgeous.
Oh man, I've got to find that.
There you go.
I'm going to Wales soon.
Speaking of drip, has anyone else noticed that Rhaenyra and Cyrax
Oh, I
wear
did.
like the same little necklace?
Oh, that's so
So
Yeah.
cute.
cute, so precious.
Like
How
friendship
salty is
bracelets. It's friendship bracelets.
Right. How salty is Alicent that she didn't get a friendship bracelet from
Yes.
Rhaenyra? As
Well,
Cyrax does.
exactly. Maybe this whole thing was just jealousy. That she's just jealous of Cyrax. Alicent.
All right, and then from there we move on to High Tide, where Corlys and Alan have a Fresh Prince moment, which is one of the most gripping scenes of the episode. Because it was, those two actors. I mean, obviously we've all been talking about how the Corlys actor these last two seasons has just been astounding, but the Alan actor too, in this
Yeah.
moment, in this scene, really bringing that raw,
Right.
substantial, tangible emotion to like, well, why the fuck weren't you there? Like, you're giving me scraps right now. I don't want your fucking scraps, dude.
Mhm.
It really was probably the highlight of the episode
And
for me.
not only I don't want them, but I won't take them.
Yes, yeah. I'll come back tomorrow if I'm still alive and still have what I was born with.
Mhm.
Nothing.
Load
From
your
you.
own goddamn boat.
You know?
No, he'll do that because that's his duty.
Sorry, David. Close your ears.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's okay to not like things. It's just I'd rather focus on the things that happened that we didn't like as opposed to things that didn't happen we didn't like.
Sure. No. I did like this scene. I just kind of thought he obviously mentions Laenor. I kind of thought, does any lord in Westeros, you know, Ned being like the 10 and Tywin being the 0, does any lord in Westeros really spend that much time with their kids? Like, he's jealous of Laenor, but like, did Corlys really spend much time with Laenor? Or was it just a bunch of like wet nurses and maesters?
To be fair, he probably spent more time with Alan than any of his natural born.
There we go.
That's feudalism, baby.
I know, right? I mean, it's a shitty world. It's so funny that, like, you know, so many people fantasize about living in these times, and you know, you have your Ren fairs and all that stuff, and it really, really was a shitty time to live in the real world
Right.
and in the fantasy world. You know, which is one of the things that he brings that George highlights. But
Would you like to die of a disease we can prevent today?
right, exactly. But not just that, the people were shitty.
Some
You know, and
people,
shitty to each other.
I mean, I love the Ren Fair just as much as everyone else, but you
Right,
can't even get me to
exactly.
go back 30 years.
hell no.
Like,
Right.
yeah, I'm ready to go back 30. So, but I enjoyed that parry a lot. It reminded me very much of the Aegon and Otto scene with that just back and forth, and it was definitely a plus as for this episode, for the finale. Definitely a
Yeah, I
highlight
mean, I
for
think
me.
it's important to recognize that abandoned kids definitely have a lot of bitterness and anger that like you can't just fix with a hey, I mean, as someone
Right,
who was
exactly.
abandoned by my parents in life, I get that and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that we gave it a moment to like show that anger and the rage and the feelings that when you do these things, it has consequences for people. It fucks up people's lives.
No,
Same. And
absolutely.
yeah, and like with Allison later in the episode, and I'll have more to say about that then. But yeah, it is cathartic to have Alan tell Corliss off like that. So many of us don't get that chance to do that in real life.
No, it was pure catharsis. It really is. I mean, to me, it speaks to people missing one or both parents or orphans of the state. It really, again, that's why I said it was like a Fresh Prince scene because the whole story behind that was Will Smith actually like went off script and was talking about his own father abandonment in the episode because it really you feel the genuineness of what a shitty situation I'm in. It doesn't matter if you're trying to give me shit now because you never did before, but I'm
Right.
still here.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle this relationship going forward, or more specifically, how Corliss handles it. Like, I mean, he definitely has been struggling with how to deal with his kids, and how to deal with them personally and to himself. And I feel like it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here with this knowledge now that like, yeah, okay, I can't just put some frosting on it and it'll all be good, lipstick on a pig. But
Right.
it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see how he tries to deal with it, and like, and if he does try to do better, or if he just accepts his rage, well, Alan's rage, and like, and just gives him space and stays away, or if he tries to make better. I mean, I think that's probably a struggle that a lot of people will go through who are in this situation. If people do realize how much they messed up someone's life, what do you do at that point? Do you give them their space and their rage, or do you like try to make it better, even if they don't want you to, or at least they say they don't want you to?
Was I the only one sitting there thinking that, they made it a big deal of a couple episodes back to show him shaving his head? And I was waiting for him to say, like, in his whole, like, do you have any idea what it's like? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I thought he was going to say, do you have any idea what it's like to have to shave your head so no one will notice you have silver hair?
Right.
I think that moment would have landed like so much better, because it gives it more weight of, oh, it's not just that, you're being ignored and that you pull her.
Something so like small in most people's heads, but yeah, it's a big deal for him because he would have to.
And it would be a huge target on his back, right? Like, and like, to have to alter your appearance so no one will know who your father is
When he
from a
won't even
young age.
acknowledge
Like, yeah, I just think that would have had
Right.
a lot more weight in it. And I'm surprised they didn't go that route. Like, why should I show him saving then,
Yeah, no, especially because Alan's a sailor, and sailors aren't known for like their decorum, and like it really could put a target on his back insofar as they think that he's putting on airs as like joining him or like joining them, like on the ship, and just make him a target for hazing on
Right.
that front.
I do think it's
Yeah.
really good casting, though, between the three of them. They do look like they could be related. They all have like a very similar nose and stuff. It's really good casting. Their physical attributes are like, yeah, I'd be shocked to, or I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, like, to know, like, oh, they actually are related in real life, those actors, the three of them.
You think, Hannah, they carpet matches the drapes?
Oh God.
You know, the eyebrows
That's
don't,
not
so
how
I'm
you
not
love.
sure. Maybe it skips a floor. You know, it's like every other floor is.
Oh my God.
Like a
Now
Marquise
that's
cake or something?
I know and love.
All right, with that, so we move into the veil with not Nettles again. She sees the dragon in the distance. And then Nasaria and Rhaenyra speak on the boon of dragon riders, with Rhaenyra asking who will pay the price. She's awoken by her Kingsguard to find out her visitor is Alicent.
Here we go.
Mm.
But yeah, that's all I wrote for this scene. Because pretty much this is the final scene, essentially. But it's a lot of just Alicent and Rhaenyra going back and forth on shit they've already discussed. I'm exhausted. I don't know. I don't have words for this.
I really like
This is
this
the
scene. I'm going to be probably
yeah.
the only one, but I really, really like this scene,
No,
and I liked
please take it.
Alicent realizing she was wrong and trying to make amends, and realizing there's no way she can make amends without killing her kids. and I
Did
mean,
she though? Did she?
is she taking
gonna-
responsibility for what she's done? No. And will she ever?
Exactly.
Probably no. She probably won't, but she's at least accepting that there are consequences for what she's done, which is
Somewhat.
progress, I guess.
I just gotta read
Somewhat.
some. I gotta
Not,
read
I'm
something
going.
quickly.
No, it's. I'm going to take my golden child of the week because all of this is a splitting episode from Alicent, because we cannot have a lesbian relationship without borderline personality disorder. You know, I guess the writers really did do their research, but on this aspect at least, because, but no, this is just all it is, because it's this is how it's so consistent for how she goes for, she cycles between these crazy poles of I love you, I hate you, then with no accountability as the common denominator in between.
She had a gap year. She went on the little trip to the
Right.
Kingswood. She smoked a little sea smoke.
No, I was thinking
Tasted
about
some
this
Damon.
today during my work day. And this is exactly what I thought, Noah. This is like when your ex, who, like left you for their affair partner who's like a decade younger and left you with the kids with no child, not a penny of child support. They come back and say what a great time they had, like surfing and learning how to surf and dropping acid, and how they learned that the universe is made of love. No, you don't get to say that to the person that you failed in that way.
That you sent the entire realm against.
Right.
Or half the realm, at least.
Right.
Because you didn't clean your fucking ears out.
Right. And it's just like, oh, I've always wanted to do what Viserys expected of me. Bitch, no. Like, you were okay with the idea of Rhaenyra becoming queen for 30 minutes after she, praised you for, what was admittedly a difficult, thankless task of the nursing home dynamic with Viserys for 20 years. But, it's just, amidst the entire persecution complex, it doesn't mean shit.
My favorite part was when she sticks out, when she says that, I've lost everyone, my lover. And she goes, wait, lover? I love the little
Right.
call out horror
Right.
moment there.
And
Like, hey.
And I'm responsibility too, because she says, oh, because Rhaenyra says, you're the one who made virtue your banner, as in you're the
Right.
one who made such a public face of having these values, traditional values.
Mhm.
And then she said, oh, but that was only because, see, no accountability.
Right.
No
Oh, no, definitely.
accountability. And now she wants to say, oh, I'll just take my favorite child of the week and go backpacking in Europe
Right.
as my quote unquote punishment. No.
Right.
Right? Like I said in the preseason thing, it's just like that it was almost a mistake to make her so religious, which
Mhm.
under the working theory of borderline personality disorder actually makes sense because she needs a fundamentalist ideology to gravitate to. But, and again, it's not, excuse me, for any shrinks in the audience, you know, the problem is the behavior, and whether it fits the full qualification for the label or not. It's effective shorthand to use for the behavior, which is close enough to be a problem. And it's just like, yeah, and it's just like, well, I said, okay, become a nun. And it's like, right, but to become a nun, it just like implies a layer of, I'm at least not going to, like luxuriate and quote unquote get off scot-free, even if you're in a nice medieval nunnery where they don't make you do any work and which only accept girls from quote unquote nice families, in which aristocratic women choose to retire to after their husbands have died and their sons have taken over and their daughters-in-law want them out of the way.
Right, she's trying to get a penance instead of, you know, being put
Right.
to trial by
So
fire.
right, and this does come back to the Martin-esque aspect of I want someone, or I want Theon to be punished, but not like this, right? I want Alicent to take accountability, but not like this.
Mhm.
And it's and yet again, this proves that she never loved any of her kids to begin with, because they are just props to use in her conflict with Rhaenyra.
Truth.
Which
Truth.
and you know what? It is not a problem that she was pointing a finger. The problem is that she was not pointing that finger at Otto. She was not pointing that finger at Viserys. She was not
Herself.
pointing that finger at society.
Or herself.
Or
Right.
herself. For telling Aegon, you can bully Aemond all you like behind closed doors. Because, and instead of obey Rhaenyra because she will be your queen, instead of find him a place in the faith of the Seven so he doesn't have to get married. He can just be a drunken, fornicating priest all he wants. And, he'd still be, a threat to women,
Not
but
in the
at
faith of
least there'd
seven,
be
but
some society layer. But there'd be some societal layer of, I'm not taking an inheritance. So don't come for me for that.
Which we see Targaryen family members legitimately do.
Right. Baelor annulled his marriage because he was ordained as a priest. It wasn't because Dana clearly cheated on him with someone. It's not, she did not even try to have an honest conversation with Rhaenyra about the future of her kids. It was, she fucked Crispy Cole and I wanted Crispy Cole. I was coming around to the idea that Rhaenyra had lied to me about sleeping with someone when I thought that someone was Daemon.
There's one thing you said in there, like I largely agree. But it struck me when you said, it just proves that she never actually loved her kids. I think for me, it's like, is that even in question? Alicent seems like the type of person who would look at those children as somehow not actually being her children because they weren't a choice she made out of love.
I'm gonna push back a little bit on that. By episode 4, she clearly knows about Moon Tea.
Right, but she has to perform that duty. So they're not a choice that she made free in love to have children with a man that she loves and respects and wants to be the father of her children. Those choices were not hers to make. and you have to have an heir and a spare, right? So I mean, God, can you imagine going to somebody like Maester Orwell and asking for Moon Tea when the king is still alive? She would have been risking her head. You can't abort royal children.
Considering how conflict avoidant Viserys is, I don't think so.
Well, and I think to your point, Hannah, it just proves that Alicent never, like you're saying stuff too, like she never viewed her children as her own, but as the crown's property. So she never really built that familial mother-child relationship.
They were conceived for the crown. And
Right.
one of them she doesn't even know at all.
At all. And he's the good one, apparently.
Right. I mean, one of my favorite moments though is when they're having that conversation and Rhaenyra calls her on the lover bit, and she says basically, "I just did what you did." And I love the subtext there, like literally, I did what you did and who you did. I love that. I love that little subtlety there, and like, unfortunately, it goes over Rhaenyra's head, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but I think it does. But it still was kind of fun, a little fun, little like ooh.
I think it more so falls flat in Alicent's face because she's like, no, see, I slept with the same guy you did. You did it too, and Rhaenyra's just like, yeah, but that's not the fucking point, you idiot. Like, like she's just so fed up with her. She's like, I don't even understand why you're trying to talk to me right now.
No, so back to the, the idea or just the question you posed, Noah, about how much these medieval aristocratic parents actually spend with their kids. It was a very important point, or it is a very important point in this story about how this conflict is passed down to the next generation. Someone passed that down, and in the showverse, it is clearly Alicent. If you go back and watch Driftmark, it is the Driftmark episode when Aemon claims Vhagar. It is the family dynamics on Team Green are already in full motion. When Otto comes and beats the shit out of Aegon for being passed out drunk, we cut to Aemond smirking. When Aemond is being interrogated in the hall after he claims Vhagar and his eye was put out, Viserys asks him, where did you hear that quote-unquote rumor about the Strong Boys?
Right.
And he looks to his mother for a very poignant second before then throwing his brother under the bus.
I mean, I would argue it goes back even further than that. It goes back to that. It's like episode 2 or 3 of the first season where they go for the hunt in the Kingswood. Just that ride in the carriage, and then later with her big pregnant belly approaching Viserys in front of that massive bonfire. I think those building blocks are being laid way, way back then when Aegon's still in the womb.
But here's my question. Given that she's done awful things and she doesn't want to completely take responsibility for it, what do you think of her offer here? I mean, one thing I think is really interesting is that, I mean, I didn't get any sense in the books that Alicent had anything to do with the second King's Landing and Rhaenyra getting it. And this is definitely either new or, I mean, we don't know what George intended, and George probably doesn't even know what he intended, which is why he left it so vague. But I mean, I think this is an interesting addition to the story, and I actually like it. I like that Alicent helped this happen. Or at least, well, we don't know for sure because that hasn't happened yet. But she's saying she's going to help make it happen. So
I feel like it undercuts Rhaenyra's victory there, and I don't care for it as much.
It seems like a writer's cop out.
Yeah,
all this,
it could definitely.
All this confirms is that we're not going to get Alice in gold chains, and I'm not talking about the lost sex tapes.
No, I think that's actually the origin of it, because she just promised something, Rhaenyra something. She's gonna come back and find out she cannot deliver.
Right.
And she's told Rhaenyra that she's a flight risk.
Right.
So I think that's actually to explain the golden chains.
It's an excuse for the writers again to plant the seeds of enmity and plant the seed for later on when they're standing there in the throne room and somebody feeds somebody else to a dragon. We don't feel as mad about it.
Right.
A lot of it to me just is contrived.
Right. And this raises, just like, it's just like, okay, we can, like someone listening to this episode could go or just chalk all of our, like reactions up to she's a bad mom and she's a bad person, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like they've gone from trying to add shades of gray to this archetype to writing, like wish fulfillment fiction about, like, see, this is why she did nothing wrong and no one has to take responsibility ever for, like these kinds of situations.
Well,
And
to your point about it's the behavior, right? Like, so it doesn't really matter what she says. It does matter what she does. It's the same thing of like, if you know someone who's had a problem with a drug addiction and they get clean, but they have not disengaged from the behavior. And I've actually had this in my real life. It's like, to me, it doesn't matter if
like
you're
a dry
clean.
drunk.
If you're still acting in the same manner as when you were when you're high. I mean, heroin on its own was not the problem. It was just sitting there. It's the behavior that you engage with around the heroin that was the problem for me. And if you don't discontinue that behavior, I'm going to discontinue my association with you.
A dry drunk.
Yeah, and Allison has a lot of that, those characteristics going on for her. And you could say, okay, well, she is clearly mentally ill. I mean, she's dealing with self-mutilation issues, she's whether she's borderline or bipolar or reactive attachment or all of the above, you could argue for that. And at a certain extent, it's like not your fault. It's a disease, but
it's your responsibility.
But we have also seen her where she's been able to get it under control. So, and exactly. It is still her responsibility to manage her own triggers.
What do we think of of Rhaenyra's reaction to it? I mean, I'm sure we can all sympathize with it, but did you think that she had to go so far? Do you think she had to be that negative about it?
I think Rhaenyra underreacted. The mere fact that Alicent walked away from this tells me she did not act queenly.
Well, I would tend to agree with that too, Zander, except for the fact that it was tit for tat, and now the whole cosplay as Septa in King's Landing makes sense. They were setting up the other side of this coin.
They even had Alicent put on her crime hoodie. Like, that's how. Oh my god!
I just like.
I have problems with this.
She's dressed in full green.
Right. Which
walking
seems weird.
More royal?
The ability to slip behind and through enemy lines throughout this entire season has made the war
green everywhere.
Right. Right. You could argue that Team Black controls the blockade, so they could let Rhaenyra through. Or they can pick up the dragon seeds. But, okay, she goes to the maester to ask, is there some brotherhood of maesters? Which, like Marwyn the Mage would have us believe. That, just like says, oh no, this is like a peace banner that lets people through. Is there a maester banner?
Maybe.
I just, you could make one thing like, how did Rhaenyra get to Harrenhal? Well, okay, she sweeps wide out over the narrow sea and comes in from the north. Great. But this other shit of, again, with the boats, with the food, with the dragon seeds, then Rhaenyra going into King's Landing, Alicent going into Dragonstone, it's just a little much.
She only came with her protector. She came with her Rickard Thorne, I'm guessing, and he can, she's got a boat hidden up that bodice. Rickard's a master sailor. I taught him myself, and he made it over, and it's all good.
And honest to God, like, I don't know if you guys watch Cinema Sins, but it's the you better come take a look at this cliche with her friggin' Queen's Guard that's like, you're going to want to take a look at this. Like, you wouldn't warn her. You wake her up in the middle of the night and you don't warn her what she's about to walk into. Like, and again, an underreaction of, oh shit, Allison's here. Like, how much would you need to be like, even though we saw that she wasn't fully asleep or anything in her bed, how much would you need to like pinch yourself to make sure you're not dreaming in a moment like that? Like, just the uncanny of, this is out of place. This doesn't belong. But
this isn't happening. This chat isn't happening in a dungeon, and she's just thrown straight in a cell.
Right.
And, yeah, like.
yeah, and there's
some dumb guard on the gate is going to be like,
not a real. She took a dagger and slit her throat. Like, you're gonna let some bitch get that close to the queen? God, I can't.
Wait, Allison came at Rhaenyra with a Valyrian steel dagger. What the fuck?
Oh my God!
What an underutilization of Mysaria in this moment. Mysaria should have been there. Mysaria should have been
to show Allison. To show Allison, Rhaenyra has a new girlfriend. Sorry.
Or just to be in her bed.
And Mysaria should have been the one that went and got the queen. Like, she should have said, prepare yourself. Like, of all the involvement she's had, why not in this scene? That would have been so much better.
Would Alicent have known about her to contact her, though? Alicent doesn't know about her.
No, but the guard should have, is what I'm saying.
No, but in Rhaenyra's house, yeah.
She's the mistress of Whisperers.
Right, exactly.
Right. It's a secret meeting. It's her business to at least, know
about it.
Become aware of this conversation and to supervise it, so she's aware of everything.
And again, talk about like the secret Maester Brotherhood. Who the hell could have gotten Alicent out of King's Landing?
Right.
And Mysaria doesn't have any fucking word or clue about it. Where the hell is she in this moment? I mean, I don't get it.
You could say that Mysaria's forte is in intelligence and not counterintelligence.
The port of Dragonstone, that as they've portrayed it in the show, is just a fucking little jetty poking out. You're telling me that Mysaria, the mistress of Whisperers, doesn't have a dude just standing there, with a fucking sack full of tobacco, just chewing that shit, watching all day. Like, come on.
And again, I think it would have been so much better to set this in a different location, like either in the town or in the dragon pit or something just more menacing. Like, and we're going to be in the library, surrounded by histories. Oh, great. Like, yeah, there is some symbolism there, but my God, it just would have been so much better to have Mysaria be the one to go get Rhaenyra, take her to the dragon pit, and instead of a dragon being in there, it's a high tower. I mean, I just think that would have been so much better. If you're going to pull these kind of triggers, pull them correctly.
Oh, absolutely. But to round out the episode proper, we get our last scene, which is themed because it is a montage. Alicent leaves, I guess, and then we see everyone marching for battle. Not Nettles is face to face with a veiled dragon. Otto Hightower is apparently in jail. And then we end on a climactic cliffhanger to open for the Gullet next season.
So climactic.
That's not a climactic.
I really liked the montage. I thought the montage was really well done. It made me excited for next season. I know not the rest of you, but I really thought it was well done. And I particularly wanted to point out that I think that Ramin Djawadi's music here was just so good. I thought the music in here was just so well done for all these little scenes in the montage. Although, if I pull out my nerd cred here, it just the duality of being a nerd. The moment I hear Reigns of Castamere when the Lannisters are there, I was like, oh, my heart soared. And then I went, wait a minute. Tywin hasn't been born yet for 100 years, so how could we have a song about him? I mean, I know it's just background music, but still it bothered me.
It did go from Reigns of Castamere into sort of like a mongrel Dune. And there was just a bit where it was like,
The spice.
But no, man, I'm with you. Do you know what? Yeah, the spice.
The
I'm with,
prophecy.
I I don't know if you can tell by this point. I didn't enjoy this episode, but I was hyped for. I am hyped for season. Not hyped for season 3, but as in totally what you guys said. This was a setup episode. It was a filler finale. That's the disappointment. Not what is to come and what they can do. It's not dead. There's still room for it to come around and still get some of our favourite bits.
What is dead may never die.
The montage was cool.
If we knew that season 3 was coming in January, I would not be questioning the bulk of this. I still think it would have been a little flat, but it wouldn't felt. Yeah, exactly. Like, just save this shit for the beginning of season. There's so much and I'm not saying this as a person, for the listener, I'm not saying this because I predicted we would see King's Landing by the end and I'm pissed off we didn't. I can go without that. That's fine. I think to end any kind of series on a finale like this is bullshit.
Yeah. And, predictions don't have to pan out to be satisfying.
Correct. By the end of last week's episode, I was like, okay, we're obviously not going to get King's Land. That's fine. But we could have if we had gone for another hour in this, which is probably what they should have done, or at least staging it better. This is not setting the stage well at all. It doesn't make me hungry for more. And I say that as a person who's been tortured by the long night in the past. Like, oh my God, I cannot believe we have to wait 20 months for the next scene. And that is painful, but it's also part of the excitement. It's part of the hype. So why not play into it? That is your moneymaker. You have to merchandise the show between seasons to pay for the show. And you haven't given me anything that would make me want to continue to be invested at this point.
I don't know. Those Caraxes figurines look tempting.
Let me buy fish feed, fish food.
Right.
Oh no!
I have fish. That'd be good for my fish.
Genuine Westerosi.
Is there some effigy? Can they include some effigy of Jason Lannister to drown?
It's a new Ben and Jerry flavor.
They do all these Dune homages of we're gonna be like Dune, and we're this is better than Dune. You should watch this shit because of Dune, but they don't do the purple eyes again. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, we got. So what do we get? We got Tisarion. We saw a little CGI dude on top who they're going to cast at some point. They kind of have to. We got the Winter Wolves, right, crossing the twins.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we got Lannisters moving. No caged lions, which I know everyone was
there was a cage.
About.
No, they had a couple.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Well, they didn't show the lion, but they showed the cage being rolled around.
Yeah. And I did like that the Stark men, the Winter Wolves, were old graybeards and green boys.
Mm-hmm.
That was good.
Can I also just say, if they wanted to make it this where, okay, it's all these pieces coming together, and it is setting the stage, they should have at least gone back to the original opening sequence of basically the painted table and how fire and blood flow through it, and actually reference these points on a map from a God's eye, pun intended, perspective. That would have been a great way to bookend it.
That wasn't the painted table. That was Viserys' Lego set.
And until they changed the theme song, I don't care.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the painted table. Why would anybody eat off the painted table? It's a priceless historical artifact.
Oh,
think in medieval times they had respect for that or care.
I think you'll find it's a glowing table.
Right, but it's also they do even at this point of Targaryen history, they do revere the conqueror, and that's it's one thing for Stannis and Melisandre to bang on the painted table. It's another thing to eat your everyday dinner off of that, even if
Yeah,
it's a
I
nice
agree.
dinner fit for a queen.
Why would you take your dinner in the small council chamber anyway? Are you fucking crazy? On all of Dragonstone, there isn't an actual banquet hall. Are you kidding me? And like, wouldn't it be closer to the kitchen? Bizarre.
Usually in castles, the kitchen's a separate building because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when it will burn down.
Well, yeah, in a building, but this is carved out of rock. It's in the name.
Well, yeah, it's a fused Valyrian stone, but
I don't get it.
I do have a few questions I want to pose to you guys. So we got to see Otto Hightower again. Apparently been in the cells. I thought it was the black cells, but then the next shot we see Larys is with the king leaving the city. So do we think he's in the black cells or in a different dungeon?
I
That
have
was
no idea.
that was some Reek vibes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was almost unrecognizable for a second.
I would say my first guess was Bitterbridge. I'm intrigued by the Laris theory, but I took another look, and the carriage that he and Aegon are in it's just a single carriage. It's not like he has Otto in the next carriage in this convoy, right?
No, I was just saying, I thought, because I was thinking he was in the black cells because of Larys, but because the next scene we see
Oh,
Larys leaving, I was like, oh, maybe it's not King's Landing or the Red Keep.
oh no, I definitely like the idea that Larys had his competition kidnapped to prolong his stay at court before Aemond decided to take his head off.
Do you see though how none of that connects with what is it, a couple episodes back, Allison saying like, and I haven't even heard from my father. The way they edited this shit together, it doesn't even, you don't even pick up on that because it was so long ago and it was such a half thought that it doesn't land. It's like watching, the Olympics and you get all hyped up for a certain athlete that just totally does not perform. And it's all this setup for no payoff. Almost all of these little nuggets have just, they've been trails that go nowhere. They get lost on the Darkling Plain.
I'm willing to wait and see where this goes, but it's also a question of would you want to commit valuable screen time to a scene of him getting kidnapped by someone?
Exactly. But you don't even need to have that. You just need to have the mere mentions of, or just something where there's a callback sooner than 3 weeks previous to make me engaged in these threads.
I'd love for it to be Larys. But I feel like Dum Dum in charge. It's gonna be like some unnamed lord. Probably
Like
something to do with
Bloomsbury.
Bitterbridge.
See, I would appreciate it being Bitterbridge because this has all, because of season 1 was confined to the court intrigue, but once the actual bloodshed starts, it's about Westeros. So I would welcome the opportunity to expand the setting, because what we got this season was Daemon in the Riverlands,
Right.
which sucked.
Yup.
And this really is, Fire and Blood is about letting the minor houses shine, and how the Reach goes to war with itself, and how the Tyrells basically essentially tacitly give permission to their bannermen, the Rowans, the Tarleys, etc., to go after the Hightowers, to take them down a peg, because for their, since they've had 2 decades of, demonstrating to the Tyrells how they have a connection to Viserys's court. And that's what the Tyrells have coveted since the conquest, because every house in the Reach barely sees them as legitimate. And so to widen because but also at the same time, it works for Larys because no one's sent a ransom note. No one's tried to deliver him to Rhaenyra or Daemon,
Right.
or to ransom him back to the Greens.
And I agree, like there's so much lost there again with the minor houses, like the Rosbys, the Beesburys, the Darklings. Like I don't know, I guess that would be pulling a little too far towards book people with some of those, and we already know the Unsullied have trouble enough keeping track of characters and their names with this series. But I think that it's important to see some of these houses that after the dance, for all intents and purposes, don't exist anymore, or very soon after, become lost to time, including the Valarians. And it's pointless. It's based on the way the show's going. It's all going to be pointless anyway. I bet you they don't even mention it again. That oh, and you spent some time in prison. They have continuity issues with their own stuff.
Right, but then it's also it does come back to a weakness of the source material, because when Otto gets sacked by Aegon in King's Landing, he's just chilling there until Daemon takes his head off.
Yeah, but if you actually do Bitterbridge and you have Maelor and all that, that makes more sense.
Oh no, I'm on Team Maelor should exist, and
you know what I mean.
It
definitely has, like, because I agree with you. There is vagueness in the source material that leaves it. Well, what do we do with this? But if you're gonna cut out one thing, then you should cut it all the way out. Like, at least when they didn't do Lady Stoneheart, they cut her all the way out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it wasn't like half-assing two things is not the way to go. Whole ass one thing,
Yeah, I don't buy
all the way
Otto
out
being
of my
torn apart.
heart.
Yeah, I don't buy Otto being torn apart by an angry mob. I don't believe that the the small folk of Bitterbridge would really focus on Otto as an idea for a potential, or harm coming to Otto as being very high on the list of priorities to make them a target when the Greens are coming anyway.
Not at this point.
Yeah, because he's not the Hand anymore, and he's a minor son of the Hightowers.
Yeah, and I don't understand how they're gonna at all have. How are they gonna have any of the Greens regroup to a point where we as the viewer give a shit when those dominoes eventually start falling? I don't understand how they plan to do that now.
Right, and this goes back into what I was saying about Alicent, because it's like it's like, yeah, they're trying to have it both ways, and have their fake Bridgerton shit with Rhaenyra, but and I say that with love, but after Aegon comes back after Dragonstone, she and Aegon are so ruthless and bloodthirsty, and they're it's just, if they go even like a tenth of what's in the book, with the way they're trying at every turn to make so many excuses after excuse for Alicent, and to not have to actually pay the consequences of her actions, because that's what Rhaenyra was actually saying to her. Not that, because Alicent has thought that, she's, what she does for, like duty above personal desires. But she's here, like what Rhaenyra is actually saying in that scene is that Alicent is, just cycling through the people in her life with these love-hate cycles. And when she decides that she loves them again, she expects them to pick up where they left off the last time she decided she loved them, as if the time she decided she hated them did not occur.
Yeah.
But that sucks. Just imagine the scenario where like Rhaenyra, or where Aegon did not make it out of the city, and like Daemon is readying Dark Sister to take Aegon's head, and he's begging for his mother, only to learn that she sold him out. That's rough, buddy.
All right. So before we end this podcast, I do have one more question to lay before everybody. Did Damon see a green man?
Yes.
I agree, yes.
No.
No. We did get a nice shot of Isle of the Faces. It's covered in werewolves.
True. But I mean, as we've covered, it's just some wizard shit for nerds, right? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's true.
This was, in my dumb opinion, this was Robert Baratheon.
Speaking of prophecies, there's this whole prophecy around Hugh Hammer during Tumbleton.
Oh yeah,
about a king with a hammer
hammer that
starting a
crushes
new
the
dynasty.
dragon.
Right. Which is so silly.
Should "This is just some wizard shit for nerds" be the subtitle of Vook?
Yes.
I'm here for it.
Sorry, guys, I had to peace out for a business call, but I'm assuming that you appropriately expressed like Alicent or Rhaenyra rage and general rage.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. That's why
I've,
we've
You
been
missed.
going for
I've
3+
heard the last
hours.
hour, and it's all been just joyous. So I just want to say thanks, Zander. I'm going to peace out, but thank you. This has been beautiful. It's been
No,
lovely.
I mean, it's my pleasure. I do this for all of you and our listeners.
Aw.
And now we can get back
It's
to
so much
Agatha
fun.
in full force, something that really matters and is written well.
Stood the test of time. But the thing is, like, to end on a hopeful note, maybe by the time we've had season 3, and we've had all the cool events, season 2 will make sense, because it was the slow build, and we're at the moment of peak dissatisfaction. Maybe it will all come good. But I feel that maybe I'm kind of now looking back retrospectively at season 1 and wondering if we gave it a really free pass just because of how upset we were at the end of Game of Thrones. And maybe season 1 wasn't quite as tightly written. I mean, it was still amazing spectacle and beautifully acted. And maybe we had a little bit like the rose-tinted glasses. And I know that the strikes messed this one up, but maybe Ryan Condal wasn't like the second coming of Christ that we all thought just in relief after Game of Thrones. And we've discovered it's just human.
If you go back and you listen to my stuff on the various casts last season, I was pretty dissatisfied from the get-go, and I didn't have high hopes based on GOT. This season started better for me, and I was getting more and more hopeful, and now I'm back to where I was, just disappointed in the entire thing. I almost don't want them to do Dunk and Egg now, because they're just going to fuck it up.
Oh,
As you say, Bina,
same.
the seeds of war are often sown in peacetime. But yeah, there are a lot of original sins of this, and it goes back to trying to have it both ways with Alicent during the Green Council and their theory of the case for trying to like just just have it both ways with her, and like with the landerization of the show, with the gender essentialism of the women want peace, the men want war, and they like maybe there was some stuff that they could have refined during more time that they did not have because of the strikes. But
Yeah, we'll know
I
with
don't know.
season 3. We'll know what a full writers' room does, right?
I
guess.
just feel like the strike had nothing to do with them not nettlesing. The strike had nothing to do with them.
Well, I think it
You know,
does, because I think it reduces what would have been a writer's room to one person, and it reduces debate, healthy debate, from hopefully a more diverse set of writers to just one person's choices. So I think it does. I actually do think it plays into it. I really do. And I think some of the
Agree.
weird, janky pacing. I mean, McCall was very good on the technicality of apparently you can't kind of edit once you've shot. You've got to stick to the shooting script. And I do think it played into it. Maybe I'm being kind. But I think we'll know by season 3, because season 3, there's no excuses to hide behind, right?
No, I would completely agree with you, Bina, because as unfortunate it is to say, I feel like this second season in particular has become a course in, rather than being how to write good television, how to not write television. Because there was a lot of great scenes and moments in this season, but a lot of it was downplayed by poor pacing and wonky stories being all over the place. It is really unfortunate.
yeah, and it does seem like, some ideas were more fleshed out than others. Team Green is textbook family dysfunction. So that, in a way, gives the screenwriters a pattern, which makes it easier to flesh everything out.
and I don't think that they had any intention of not amalgamizing Raina with Nettles. And I think that there's two big pieces of evidence I have for that. Number one, the fact that, okay, they include a non-binary character, and that's great. Why not make that a person of color too, though? I mean, they are SOC, so why not there's an opportunity right there. And Hollywood does this all the time. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Good Place, but this is a show that spends 4 seasons calling out racism and lack of representation, and then at the 11th hour, when they have an opportunity to introduce a character who in real life, Hypatia of Alexandria, was a person of color, who do they cast in that role? Lisa fucking Kudrow. And don't get me wrong, I love Lisa Kudrow, but they talk the talk, they do not walk the walk. They point the finger, they have 3 pointing back at them, and they do not trust their audience to, number one, be intellectual enough to get it, or number two, be progressive enough to go with it. And I just can't stand it. You have all these opportunities to include more actors of color with more representation across the spectrum. It is a fantasy series. It's not based on a real world history. So to me, it reduces the casting of the entire House Valerian to tokenism, and I think it's disgusting. I don't appreciate that.
It's tokenism, and with making Raina be the person to do it, they're really downplaying the, they're kind of contradicting their own aspect of, these, women are, the women want peace and everything, because Raina is the Sansa of Team Black, and Sansa's true strength is, if I am ever queen, I shall make them love me. And that she's just learning that life is not a song, and it's not learn how to wheel and deal, but not be so bitter about it like Alicent is. And then she says about her arranged marriage that the Council of Regents tries to set for her. If he is courtly, I am sure I shall love him. That it's a little it's just baffling as to why they try to lose that opportunity for that soapbox when
Yeah.
this is the thesis of their show.
It goes back to like, be the change you want to see. If you want to see these changes in the world, that has to start with you and what you produce. And the only way I can come even close to accepting this whole thing with Raina is if they really make it a point to lamplight the juxtaposition of, she starts as sort of a more timid, mild, weaker character and becomes the wild, untamed badass riding sheep stealer that Nettles is supposed to be. And that is juxtaposed to Eamon's arc of, he is the weakest one and he becomes the strongest one, the tallest one. He rides Vagar. If they really make it a point to mirror that, I can maybe get a little bit okay with it. But not only are they just doing a disservice to everyone as far as the character of Nettles is concerned, but to have Raina be Sheep Stealer's rider, it's doing a disservice to the character that is Sheep Stealer.
I think just to wrap back to Bina's point, like if we had to wait 6 seconds for the next episode to play, we're all really happy.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to wait 2 goddamn years or whatever, however long it's going to be. So I think, yeah, you're totally right. On a rewatch, this is just going to be folded in and people in the future might enjoy it. And my God, do I hope that is the case, because I love these books. And overall, this has been it's been an enjoyable ride.
I'm going to be optimistic about the whole thing. And I'm going to trust that, I'm going to call for patience, and I'm going to trust that they know what they're doing, and they're going to sew it up.
I don't want to
nicely,
get my
and it's
hopes
gonna come
that high
through.
because I will be even further disappointed than I am. So I don't have high hopes set right now. I have a really low bar set. But I will say that there are so many people working on this show that are obviously extremely talented, not just the actors, but there are brilliant strokes of the pen with certain selections of the writing. The cinematography, it definitely has its moments, don't get me wrong. It's just those tiny crown jewels are spread so few and far between that as a package, it's not doing it for me. Standalone moments, absolutely, yes. 10 out of 10. There's definitely those beats. I would hope that they would learn those lessons and in season 3 make it more of a fast-paced thrill ride as the dance should be. And I think they did have the opportunity to hit some of those beats. Like, I really do feel like we should have gotten King's Landing, or at least, I don't know. The fact that they didn't do Maelor and Bitterbridge already kind of set the tone for a little bit of blah. But, we don't have Tumbleton. Sharp Point is the closest thing we get to any action in these last 2 episodes. And it happens off page.
I understand their hesitance to include Maelor, but how many people said I couldn't put the book or show down once Bran went out the window?
Right. I mean,
and Blood and
People
Cheese
said
was
that.
such a letdown.
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So many people said that.
Arguably, he does survive. And I mean, I guess to give the show fairness, this is one thing I was thinking about is like, there are some, by George's own admission, some writers are gardeners, some writers are architects, right? And sometimes when you plant those seeds as a gardener, they don't all grow, as evidenced by, look at Tyrion in, the prologue part of Game of Thrones versus him throughout the rest of the series, with his acrobatics and his mushroom qualities, right? So, in all fairness to the showrunners here, it seems like they've done some of those where they had the tumbling jester Tyrion, and then they decided, oh no, that's not going to work, so we're going to shift gears. There are a few of those you can see happening with some characters and some story elements in this. So I guess for that sense, I could be along for it as long as they do course correct these things. But if they double down on them and they act like, no, that wasn't a mistake. No, we didn't suffer from the strike. I'm going to be pretty furious.
Cautiously optimistic, I'll say.
Right.
I don't want to hate watch. And I feel like if I keep going down this road, that's exactly what's going to happen. And I don't want to do that. I want to say that, they're anticipating, they knew what this is heading into. We know what's going to happen, post Gullet, that it's going to be a frenetic, just craziness with battle and battle after battle. So I think maybe just cautiously optimistic is what I really want to say. And I hope, Hannah, that they won't double down and try to die on this hill about, this is how it's meant to be, and this is, our vision or something like that. So that's just kind of how I wanted to end
looking
it.
forward to a lot of the big set pieces as well. I want to see Jace choking on his own blood. I want to see Daemon leaping off Caraxes during the God's Eye. I want to see the dragons dancing. I want to see the dragons dancing at Templeton.
I want to see the boiling in the God's Eye. That's the thing that I want to see the most.
The storming of the dragon pit. Just, that shot of Syrax at the top of Harrenhal. It was so fucking good.
Right.
That's another thing. When there's another nugget they could have planted that would have been. I would have sat on the edge of my seat for 20 months if they had done anything in Cobbler's Square. Just a little glimpse even would have given me more of a sit forward, but they didn't.
Did we even get a street scene of King's Landing after the riot?
No.
Nope.
We don't have any shepherd or anything.
I'm okay with that. I think the season you do Rhaenyra taking King's Landing, I think that makes the most sense for casting a minor character like the shepherd. But you could just have one random septum. But you could have one random septum just like blathering on in the square, like in the Life of Brian, and just have the shepherd emerge later as the one who's getting the most attention.
So again, if we're looking at these things where they've absolutely shoehorned in so much Game of Thrones stuff and done all this mirror imagery to Game of Thrones stuff, I'm sorry, the sparrow, the shepherd, like we don't want to connect those dots here yet. We don't want to even have a little smattering of it, a slight taste. It's not even in the background. It's not on the horizon. It's not a twinkling in anyone's eye. It's disappointing. And I don't want to see now in season 3, 5 episodes of building him up where we could have started to sprinkle him in here. And he's not a minor character. His actions, maybe I look at it wrong or oddly, but to me, his actions directly affect the fact that we don't have dragons in the world anymore for 200 years after this.
No, he's definitely important to that storyline, but I can see them starting that storyline with like giving him a line as opposed to just having a featured extra grab Alicent's arm and lose his hand. To start that storyline proper this season, Rhaenyra takes King's Landing. So even if like season 3 episode 1 is the Gullet and Rhaenyra is still on Dragonstone, you could build the just like lots of creatures in King's Landing and have them just like Aemon, or have someone just brush them off. But then you see Rhaenyra come into King's Landing, and then you just steadily build that, right?
So here, speaking of that, this makes me think of another couple of things that I had where, like, okay, the thing with Larys and what's his face? I forget who. He's not a Stokeworth. He's whoever on Aemon's small council, right? Says like, there's been reports of dragons over Dragonstone. He's like, better keep that to yourself. that nugget didn't really pan out either, where I feel like we should have then had some more tension of his lair is going to be found out for like not letting these beings spill. He's supposed to be master of whispers, right? That was a failure. That was kind of like a wah wah to me.
Yeah,
And then like
I can
to
see
your
that.
point, Fire and
I
Blood,
think the payoff.
the minor houses, like we don't have any thought for. They failed the Rossbys already. We don't have any Stillcourse in the mix, which they are important. And where the hell, like John Roxton's not a character yet, and I'm really hoping that we do see him come in, an Orphan Maker, because that is a pretty critical detail. Although I guess there is time because that's probably more of like a season 4 thing at this point. But I just feel again, if you're already in a position where you know you have a certain fan base that is not capable of keeping up with who is that, how are they related, what's their name, what was that guy's name again, because there's so many characters, then you should start planting their seeds stronger and for longer.
I think it really comes down to budget, which sucks. And it's like it's either between the writer's strike and the budget cuts, this season got screwed hard. And because it's like, do you want to cast an unknown who people can identify as, or who the audience can really project on as, yes, that person is really embodying their role without the baggage of celebrity weighing them down, right? Or do you want to, and then pay them less, because then you could do that. Or then do you want to get like a really charismatic orator and who can deliver that to play the shepherd?
Yeah,
I think that's the issue that any production faces, and I'm not unsympathetic to that, but it like, and also it's just like and also it's just like, I definitely don't like appreciate like Damon wasting time in Harrenhal and the Rhaenyra council scenes that came at the expense of other characters on Team Black, and that could have been developed had the writers more time, or because like they could use Daemon and Rhaenyra in ways that fulfill the contractual obligations to give their stars X amounts of screen time, but use that to develop the other characters.
exactly. That's
like,
what I mean.
Right, because they could have had, while Jace was at the Twins, they could have had him stop by in Harrenhal to clarify what is Jace and Daemon's relationship. And that actually develops both of their characters, because it answers the question of, would Daemon, or has Daemon thought about poisoning Jace to, like bring up his own sons in the succession? Because the way Daemon walked into Dragonstone to deliver the news of Luke's death to Rhaenyra, at least the way they had Matt Smith portray it, that felt tender.
Yeah.
And
I completely use those major players to build up the minor houses and have their involvement be more at the forefront. It is the point,
right? Like
the story.
like they tried to do with the Blackwoods with Daemon's subplot, but it's and look, yeah, and like I'm not unsympathetic to economy of vices. Just like, okay, so there's this artist named Arkram, and he's this comic book illustrator who was in his heyday in the 70s, and so he did a straight comic book adaptation of the Book of Genesis. And for the Baguette, he has this, he just draws a quick series of thumbnails of so-and-so begat so-and-so, etc. And like they look like their whole complete person. And in the source material, that's what we get, right? We get a quickly sketched thumbnail that has, several interesting characteristics. And yeah, I'm sympathetic to the idea that, like that, that some sacrifices do have to be made for the budget, but they should at least try to include a few of them, a few of the
Yeah.
characters like that. And it's just like because it makes the world feel richer, and it underscores the fact that the story is about Westeros. And yes, the main characters were centered around this court drama before it spiraled out of control into all-out war. But like this world is inhabited by other characters, and their fates are part of the Shakespearean collateral damage that makes it a tragedy.
So I would like to thank you all for listening today, and I'd also like to thank my counselors for joining me this entire season. It's been a lot of fun, and in order to continue the fun, you should definitely join us on our Discord. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We get into a lot of fun that's more than just House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, although that is our bread and butter. But definitely come and join us, be part of the conversation, and then we will see you all for the next season. Bye-bye.
So much, Zander, for all your work. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zander, for everything. Bye, guys. It's been great.
I feel like we should do, between now and next season, like a revisit of Fire and Blood, or a revisit of the World Book, or all of the above. Like,
I feel like the New Order Blue Monday reference works for this season because it is about a sort of confusing, vaguely abusive relationship. Like, you've invested your time and you're not being emotionally fulfilled, but you're confused.
I'm still hanging in
exactly.
there. I can change them.
You don't
If
understand. these
Rhaenyra broke
things.
out in song, that would be amazing.
Alright, we're back in business. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Alright,
Let's rock.
perfect.
Yep.
Rhaenyra was a pretty princess, and she was the realm's delight. And her dad did declare that she was his heir, and the Iron Throne was her birthright. But Queen Emma died in childbirth. The king soon took another wife. Now Alicent wants her son on the throne, and it's left the realm in strife. Oh, it's all kicking off between the blacks and the greens, 'cause Emma Arryn didn't have a son. Now the swords will flash and the togs will clash to the echo of a dragon song. Now Rhaenyra married Leonor, but he preferred the brown and not the pink. She had 3 strong sons, not a silver hair on one, so Harlan Strong's the sire everybody thinks. Now Alicent gave the king more children, and Aegon was the eldest son. Soon the princess and the queen became the blacks against the greens, and the dance of the dragon soon begun. Oh, it's all kicking off between the blacks and the greens, 'cause Emma Arryn didn't have a son. Now the swords will flash and the dogs will clash to the echo of a dragon song. Now the king, he has a brother, the dragon rider Prince Daemon. The first wife he stoned and the second one was burned, but he wasn't left alone very long. For he is a true Targaryen, they like to keep it in the family. When not riding Syraxes, then he's riding on his niece, a rogue prince forever he shall be. Oh, it's all kicking off between the blacks and the greens, 'cause Emma Arryn didn't have a son. Now the swords will flash and the togs will clash to the echo of a dragon song. Oh, it's all kicking off between the blacks and the greens, 'cause Emma Aaron didn't have a son. Now the swords will flash and the togs will clash to the echo of a dragon song.